Well, hello there. How are you? We've got a Glenn coming in very soon.
There he is. I was muted in three different places. Always love doing that. Good to see you. How's
Well,
everything going tonight?
better to have three mutes than none.
That's true. Definitely don't want it to be over the top in everybody's face, way too loud. Can't have that. Hopefully, this is a reasonable volume. Good place for that.
Yep, sound good?
All right, good. Your headset sounds good too. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's show. I always love that song when we start off there. Let's see now. We've got a few things that we were going to get into tonight, but the question is, do we want to talk piano, or do we want to talk guitar? Do we want to talk songwriting? Do we want to talk theory? Which ones do we want to get to first? That's kind of the
I'm
question there.
I'm good on all of them, and I got my piano locked and loaded.
Nice, nice. That's good. I have a couple things that we can look at here. One of them was just a screen grab that I had grabbed from a video. We have the video over here as well that we can look at. This we're not going to look at the whole video. We're just going to throw it up here so that we can see where it came from here. Hopefully, we can see that. Actually, I'll go it this way
There you go.
because this is from somebody who I just found recently. Actually, John Pill is his name. He's got a few hundred subscribers, and this is just it's about three Beatles chord progression tricks. And just this first screen grab that as I just started watching it really grabbed my attention because it's got some excellent points right here about a way to work out the chords that are in a key and where they all kind of fit in. And also just the circle of fifths. Just anywhere, I mean, you can find circle of fifths charts anywhere, but the main thing I wanted to see about this one is the major and minor, the fact that it has all the minors on the inside of there as well. So that I'm not sure if you can see it very clearly, but we've got at the top, you've got the F, the C, and the G, and then you've got the minors that are associated, the D minor, the A minor, and the E minor. Each of those are relative to each other. Like the C major and the A minor all use the same notes. It's just a question of where you start, end, and focus. So the main thing that kind of jumped out at me was the fact that those three that we're looking at there, like that F, C, and G, if you were thinking about in the key of C, the C being the 1, you're looking at the 4, the 1, and the 5. And then those associated minors are the 2, the 6, and the 3. So that's the 6 chords that we ever really want to use in any key. So in any key that you see on here, if we're in the key of E, for example, you can already see that the 3 major chords on the outside, the B, the E, and the A, and the 3 minor chords on the inside, the G sharp minor, the C sharp minor, and the F sharp minor. And those are the 6 chords that you would play in the key of E. So if you have this chart up in front of you, you can literally see which 6 chords all go with whatever major or minor key that you're working with. So it's really useful to have information like that handy. And again, it doesn't matter if it's this particular chart, it's having a chart like this in general. This was just one that I happened to find from, again, a particular video that just jumped out at me from my feed. And I have so many videos that jump out at me from my feed because I watch so much music stuff all the time that, whether it's chords or music theory or progressions, there's always stuff going on that you can find from all these different people. So the question is, what kind of stuff would you do from stuff like this? It talks about starting in the key of C, for example, and looking at the chords that are in the key of C. So you've got the C major, the D minor, E minor, F and G major, A minor, and the B minor flat 5. If you were to go anti-clockwise, so going around to the left from the C to the F to the B minor flat 5, going around that way, you could take those chords around and you get that feel of going around that way, where I'm not sure if the volume's coming in loud
Yep.
or quiet or okay.
No,
Let's
sounds
try
good.
that. So that basically going from the C to the F to the B minor flat 5, because these are all in the key of C major, so it's all white notes for all of these. Then the E minor, A minor, D minor, G, and C. And that's the way when you get that feel or you get that kind of cadence. And on the guitar, it's kind of the way those chord shapes kind of jump back and forth. Really makes a lot of sense also, where you're just going like down a string and then up, back to that first string and down 2 frets and then down a string and then you're just kind of bouncing from chord to chord. And when you get the feel of that motion, you're going around the circle of fourths essentially in that case, instead of going around to the right, which would be the circle of fifths. There's the elbow. To the left is the circle of fourths, where you're going by fourths each time you go.
You can play with your elbow? You are good.
I don't want to knock it off though because it's actually sitting on my sitting on my drum kit. So definitely don't want to do that. But that's again just one example of the types of things that we can get from just looking at certain websites or even just different information that you find out there. Any particular teachers that you find, I have dozens that I could give recommendations for. You go to one of my YouTube channel or stream, and you'll just see just a list of so many different music educators, people who are fantastic musicians, people who do live music, people who do live sound. There's all kinds of things in there that are very, very interesting nuggets that come out all the time. And that's why
Oh
we do
yeah,
this show.
YouTube is full of educational resources for
Yeah,
learning music.
absolutely. And always be open to learn new things. Like there's times where I'll watch, you know, guitar for beginner video, and I mean I know a lot about guitar, and I don't claim to be an expert, but I do claim to be beyond a beginner. But I'll still watch a beginner video because there's still nuggets that can jump out at you, or things, connections that you didn't make before that make things that much easier. It could be about sight reading. It could be about reading tab. It could be about playing a particular progression or particular cadence in a certain way. So many different ways that the information out there can affect what you're doing and what you're looking at.
Yeah, and it helps when you know what you're searching for. So, if you go Google for, circle of fifths, you're going to find some of those instructional videos. Like what earlier this week we were looking on, tips to improve sight reading with
Yep.
music, and you found some fantastic ones.
Exactly. And that was one that I had never seen any of her videos before earlier that day, where I saw one that looked interesting. So I checked it out and it made so much sense that I watched another one that was a 20-minute long one talking about all kinds of different ways that make it easier to see things, especially the intervals one I liked a lot, where it makes it easier to
Yes.
visually identify intervals on the piano.
It took me less than 5 minutes with her explanation to start to see not just the intervals, but the chord inversions on the staff, which I've
Yep.
been trying to do for 30 years, and in 5 minutes she cleared it up.
Exactly. And that's one where, you never know when a nugget like that'll hit at the right time. And that's where everybody's in a different point in their journey. And that's why, to me, going over stuff that seems like beginner or easy stuff to people, there's certain people in the audience that it'll be the right information at the right time, and it'll hit them, and something will just click and make them, allow them to jump to that next level. And I love the way that works. That's always been a bonus to me, and it's always been one of the reasons that I've enjoyed talking to people about music in general and playing music as well, just to go through stuff and to actually show how the theory works. And we're talking about those 6 chords that work, that C, F, and G. You've got the C, and then the F, and the G, and the C. By using different inversions, you can make that sound different. Like that wasn't the usual way of playing it. That was just keeping it all kind of in one neighborhood by using inversions. And you can do the same thing on the guitar. I highly recommend looking at triads and the triad inversions on guitar on different string sets so that you can get comfortable with using any 3 strings that are all next to each other to get a root, a third, and a fifth. Because then you can basically, in different positions, in different places on the neck, you can get the different inversions of the chord and be able to do certain chord transitions, certain chord changes very easily because the chords literally sit right next to each other, and you only have to adjust a note here or a note there to make the chord work.
Slide up and down the neck.
Yep, and same thing on the keyboard where you can work your way up. Like if you were doing C, you got your first C down there, and then you go to the inversions, and you work your way all the way up. And all you're doing is taking the lowest note, flopping it on top, and playing those 3, and then those 3, and then those 3, and working your way up. That was with a major scale, just a major third, a major triad, I should say. But you can do the same major triads, minor triads. You can do it with 7th chords, diminished chords. Lots of different ways that you can make it happen. But the
Yeah, and if you keep those charts, handy, like if you are looking at them while you're trying out this stuff, it does simplify the process of understanding it. Those flashcards really can help.
yeah. Now, one of the ones, speaking of the flashcards, one of the things that I had set before, let me move this over here. I have a screen that I'd set up. This is something I'd made as a kind of a visual aid or a chart, you might say, for something that I had been working on for a couple of years back. I made it, I guess, from a bunch of different resources. And in the background, it's got that circle of fifths chart as well, just because that was something that was useful as well. Let me see here. Yeah, so that should be right there. Then let me switch you to this way. There. So it's got that we were just looking at that circle of fifths chart a minute ago, and that's on the left here from that same website that we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the this rest of it. It's kind of busy looking, and there's a lot to it. But this is just kind of a chart that I'd made for myself, where if you look at the top right side of it, these two sections are basically guitar necks.
There's your cage system.
Yep, exactly. And then here's the cage system and how it relates to the what you might call the cowboy chords, these top five. That might be hard to see because there's these top five in the middle here. But that's the C chord, the A chord, the G chord, the E chord, and the D chord, all major and all in open position, they call it. And those are the basis. That's what they basically teach people earliest with guitar, and it's part of the cage system. They have a whole system built around it. Part of the reason is because those are the root position chords. These are the movable shapes. So these are the ones where we were saying, if you play this shape for C, for example, and this is at the third fret, and this is a 3, a 2, a 0, a 1, and a 0. So those two zeros are open, for example. That's the open C chord that you're looking at up here. So that would be in the root position. But you can slide that anywhere, and instead of being a C chord, if you move up 2 frets, it'll be a D chord. If you move up 2 more frets, it'll be an E chord. So it's just the same shape, same claw, as you like to call it. You just move that claw. If you learn these 5 claws, you can play so much of everything. These are all major chords, but once you learn these, they're very, very useful. In particular, this E shape, if you see this, the fourth one on the middle here, that E shape, once you get comfortable with that, to make that minor, you just bring that, if you kind of look at it, the one that's closest on the, I can't see, you probably can't see the hand that I have on the screen there, but you just bring one note down to that bar, and instead of barring those 3 notes, the top there, you'd be barring 4 notes at the top, and then those 2 are together just below it. Hard to describe it, easier if I have the guitar in hand. But the thing is that once you learn there's a couple of different claws, you can now play all the major chords and all the minor chords rooting on the 6th string or the 5th string. So the fattest string or the next fattest string, or even those thinnest 4 strings. Learning those 3 different positions of chords or triads can make it so much easier to figure out what's going on. And this is also how they relate to each of the pentatonic shapes down the bottom of that list. You have the C-shape pentatonic, the A-shape pentatonic, the G-shape, the E-shape, and the D-shape. And those all relate to each of those movable chord shapes and how they relate to each of the modes for example, Ionian, Aeolian, hitting the keyboard again, Mixolydian, Lydian, Phrygian, all the different modes that there are, and which ones relate to which position. So, like, this would be the one that relates to Phrygian or Lydian for the C-shape.
The yellow ones are part of E major.
At the bottom here, with the ones that have individual colors, like rainbow colors, each of those I did for just to show the root notes. So, for example, Ionian, that red would be the lowest string is on the left and the skinniest string is on the right. And the headstock would be up in the air and the body of the guitar is down the bottom, so you can get a feel for how we're looking at it. But you would be playing basically in the order of the rainbow would be the order of the 1, 2, 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7 for the chord that you're playing. So in this case, if we were playing this at the 8th fret for that red dot, that would be the C, the D, and then red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blue, purple, and then you're back to red, and that's an octave. And then it's another octave to get up to there. So it's a way that you can see whether you're an Ionian or if you're in Dorian. Now you're playing as if you're the 2 is actually the 1. So now you're starting with the orange instead of the red. And again, it's a lot of information to take in. And it's one of those things that when I look at it for a while, more stuff makes sense than it did at first. But it's something that you really have to kind of absorb over time. Same thing in the top right here, though. It's how the A minor pentatonic in this second bar down on the right relates to A minor, which is the top one, and those are the different positions and how you can be in that same hand position and be playing pentatonic or be playing diatonic in minor in this case, and have it work out and see all the notes on the whole fretboard and what different positions you can use or what different patterns you can use to move around. And you'll see that the 5 different pentatonic patterns from here. You've got the one with this one bar across the pentatonic is one of they call it the pentatonic equator. I think I saw John Mayer saying that at one point. But basically that's somewhere that's an easy landmark, because when you see where that is, and you've got this shape on the left of it and this shape on the right of it, and so you can use those 2 different positions and get a whole bunch of different feels from your solos and from what you're doing based on what you're doing in there. So, but it's one of those things that there's a lot of information to take in, so I don't want to like overwhelm with all the stuff that's there. But it's one of those things that I've made like reference materials like that, or I find reference materials or charts that I like, and I just kind of go with those because a lot of them have a lot of good information, and depending on how you look at them, they can definitely bring a lot of stuff to light that you might not have realized in the past, or might not have seen how something relates to something else. That's the other
Well,
one that's kind of
and
big.
and like you said, the more you look at it,
Hmm.
things start to make sense when they're ready to make sense. Like
Yeah.
looking at that circle of fifths
Hmm.
and seeing the staff, the clef as it goes around, and realizing like G, one sharp,
Hmm. Yep. And actually, he
B,
has
two
it.
sharps, A, three sharps. Again, 30 years of trying to deal with sheet music, and I never realized just how simple it is to, in your head, if I can remember C, G, D, A, E, B,
Yep.
then
That's the whole sharp side.
I
Yeah.
know all the sharp scales.
Yep. And then that bottom one there, the thing that blows my mind is when you get to the bottom of the chart there, you've got your, they list it as six sharps or six flats because you could be looking at it as the next, depending if you're coming around from the four sharps, five sharps, six sharps, or if you're coming around from the other side, four flats, five flats, six flats. But you can call it either name. So that's where you get that F sharp or G flat. And you get the C sharp or the D flat. And he lists both. So like this would be, these are both six. So six sharps or six flats. But this one would be seven sharps or five flats. This would be five sharps or seven flats. And that's where if you keep going around, it sounds uglier and uglier with seven sharps or eight sharps or nine sharps. But it's actually getting back easier because you're just unflatting flats with those sharps, if that makes sense. Because you're getting back around the circle back to where you're at zero again when you get back to C.
Has anybody ever come up with a phonetic way to remember C, G, D, A, E, B?
For
Like
me,
how every good boy deserves fudge. That's what I always used to say to remember the staff. C, G, D, A, E, B.
what I
Cool
usually use is
guys don't
I start from
answer ever back
because
because
what I usually look at is backwards. Actually, I start from that B and I see the word bead, BEAD.
oh,
So it's just bead GC, and then you're back home. So it's just bead GC, and then if you look at the other side, you go CF, and then you got the flats where it's B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, which is also bead, but all in flats. So B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and then the G flat at the bottom, which is the same as that G that you did before. So BEAD G, and down over here you got the B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then that's everybody. So once and it's weird because it's coming in up from the bottom. So if you look around, instead of trying to remember C, G, D, A, E, which makes sense and it's good to remember that as well, going the other way, you've got the word bead helping you. So it's CF, and then bead in the flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then BEAD, G, C, and you're back up. But you don't have to memorize it by having it as a chart that's sitting in front of you when you're working on stuff. Again, if somebody said, hey, we're going to jam in A flat, I can just look at this chart and see that, okay, if we're in A flat, we're going to be using A flat, E flat, and D flat as the majors. We're going to be using F minor, C minor, and I think that says B minor, or B flat minor, I should say. So we know those are the six chords that we're going to be using in that key. And so immediately I know that I can just jump in and use those six chords or listen to, and it sounds like, okay, that feels like the two. And then I would know to jump to, the minor two, which would be whichever one of those feels like it. From the A flat, it would be the B flat, B flat
what is
minor.
the pattern on a major scale? One is major, two
Minor.
is minor, three is minor,
Yep.
four is major,
Hmm. Now
fifth is major.
five is major or dominant, depending if you're playing sevenths. Because if you're playing sevenths, then it would be using that flat seven, because that's that whole mixolydian thing that we talked about at one point. Not critical at this time. If you're using triads, yes, F and G both major, and then your A is minor, and
C
then
is minor.
your B is who? B is
Oh
the
yeah,
ass.
the B is the asshole. Yeah.
But you do the B minor flat
B
five.
is a bitch.
The B minor flat five means you're using the root, the flat third, and the flat fifth. So that's where you're getting the B, not the D sharp, but the D, and not the F sharp, but the F. So the B, D, and the F. And that's that diminished sounding, because that is a diminished triad. To make it fully diminished, you would also add the A flat. And that gives you that spooky sound.
Alice going down the rabbit hole.
And that's just moving the same way we did the moving one note to the top. This is just moving one note to the bottom and just playing it stretched out like that, because it's the same four notes the whole way as you keep going down. So when you're getting rid of that D on the top, you're adding a D to the bottom, and then when you're going to the B, B from the top to the bottom. And it just makes it so that it sounds cool, it sounds fancy, it sounds like you're moving all up and down the keyboard like you know what you're doing. And in essence, you're just playing those four notes and just recognizing that as you're getting one out, you're adding that one in over there. So that's one of the good ones. And again, with that chart, you're not only seeing that. The other thing would be the 7. If you did want to play the 7, like let's say we're talking about C major again. So you've got the top little wedge where we're looking at the F, the C, and the G with the D minor, A minor, and E minor. The 7 for that is this right next to it, is the B minor.
The diminished.
It'll be the B minor flat 5, and that's why they have it over here as B minor flat 5. But seeing where it is, you've got your wedge of the 6 chords that we're using, and then that 7th chord, that one that we don't like to talk about. He's just hanging out right on the side. He's like, I'm almost here, guys. I'm almost here. And he's like right there at the edge. So again, if we were playing,
troublemaker.
So if we're playing in the key of A flat, we know that we're using these 6 chords in that wedge, and then the minor that's just before that would be, actually, is it just before? Yeah, just before would be G minor. So it would be G minor flat 5 would go with the A flat. So that's the one way that you can see where things are relative to each other. And again, another piece of information you can pull out of there. If you wanted to get fancy with that diminished, you know which diminished to start from, at the very least. We also talked about the fact that there are only a few diminished chords, because you take those 4 notes and then you're back to where you started from. And since those notes are a minor third apart, there's only 1, 2, 3 different diminished chords, because once you go up from that one, everybody goes up a half step. Everybody goes up a half step, and then you're back home where you started from, just at that next inversion. So there's only 3 possible diminished chords. So you can even just guess, and you got a 1 in 3 chance of being right if you hit a diminished chord. But better to know which one goes.
And getting comfortable with what's relative to what in music is the journey.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly.
just with like major, minor, but like, whatever chord you're in and which chords will work with it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's where, again, you got the circle of fifths is one thing, and that is, one chart that has a lot of information in it, and we didn't even scratch the surface, really. There's a lot more that you can get from the information that's in the chart, but that's a great start. Understanding, especially what you talked about at first, which is knowing that from that top center where you have 0 sharps and 0 flats, whichever side you're going down, you're adding sharps or you're adding flats, so that the further around you go, the more you have. And once you get comfortable with counting around that, once you memorize essentially the structure there, and that BEAD for me helped a lot to understand that that's in 2 places, because that's 8 of them knocked out right there. And I know about the CF and the G. So that's basically everybody except the G flat at the bottom. So that kind of makes it where everything kind of falls in and fits. And then as somebody says, hey, let's play something in E flat. It's like, okay, well, that's got, 1, 2, 3, that's got 3 flats in it. So I know that's the B flat, the B flat, the E flat, and the A flat, because they're always in the same order, and so that everything that's got 1 flat or more is going to have the B flat. If it has 2 flats or more, it'll have the B flat and the E flat. And you add that way: B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and that's what you've got.
Now that it's clicked in my brain when I'm looking at the staff, that it's literally showing me what's sharp or flat.
Yep.
Now I want to see a staff like in front of me all the time, just for quick reference. Like, okay, I'm in this scale. Those are my 3 sharps.
Mm-hmm. You see the 3 sharps, you'll see where the flats are, whether they're flats, you'll see if things are natural, because not everybody obeys the rules of music. Like, just because we say we're in the key of C doesn't mean somebody's not going to throw in some black notes somewhere just because they really want to. Some people just do that. There's reasons to, of course. But
again, that's why I'm loving Meticulous, because,
yeah.
if I'm watching that as I'm experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
I'll know when I'm going in and out of a scale.
Yep, exactly. And you'll see which ones, and if you're hitting a wrong note, like you're trying to hit C minor and you hit that, that's a C major. So like it would be showing you that E is natural when it should be flat to be C minor. If you had it said, that we're playing this in C minor, you would know that. But that's where, again,
it's just as useful of a learning tool personally as it is for, teachers and students.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And again, different things will click with people at different times too. So everyone's in a different spot in their journey. So going over even some of the stuff that seems very basic, even if I'll see something that's super expert guitar player video, like I'll watch it, but it doesn't mean it's going to help me specifically. I might not be ready to receive that information. My technique might not be up to par to be able to play that particular style. It depends on a lot of different things. You can try it. There's no reason to not check it out. But it's better for me, like I find, to look at things that are possibly beneath my level, or things that I definitely understand, and just see maybe it's a different way of looking at it, which might not do anything for me, but it might help me describe it to somebody else to make it easier for them to make something click, because not everybody understands or absorbs things the same way. So somebody might prefer to see it in a chart and all of a sudden everything jumps out. Other people would want to hear it, and then they can kind of hear it as a song in their head, C, F, and like go through the changes like that and hear how the changes sound relative to each other. So
Yeah,
it
and
depends on.
to me, nothing's beneath my level.
Exactly,
even
and being
even
willing
the
to learn anything, anytime, yeah.
yeah, even the basics are clicking back in my head, after all this time, and clicking more. Like I'm understanding even the basics better than I did way back when I first learned them.
hmm And I see we got RJS and Emiliano, and
Hey, good day, RJS.
how's everybody
Chuck's
doing?
in the house.
Yep, yep.
And
We got Jay,
Emiliano just got his
Daltenius.
100th follower.
Yep, yep.
Congrats.
Nice, nice. Moving on up. Excellent. Just kind of jumping back and forth for the little bit in the Band Lab chat, and then back over to see about which things we're looking at next, because we've got a few here. But I am liking what we're talking about here with respect to the different chords. Again, just knowing not to hammer at it too much, but knowing those 6 chords, whatever key you're in, we can just play in any key if we wanted to. So, if we wanted to play in the key of D, where we know we've got 2 sharps, right? So we know we've got the F sharp and the C sharp. And so we could just play. And you can just play in that key all day, just recognizing that the only place you have to really worry about not hitting, or about hitting things other than the white notes is at the F sharp and the C sharp. So you're not hitting any regular F naturals or C naturals. And that'll keep you out of trouble just trying to play that. It also relates to the same way that C major relates to A minor, your D major relates to B minor, and that's what you were talking about before, because B minor would be the same notes.
Yeah, relative minors was the first thing my piano teacher like drilled in. It said, understand.
It's important, absolutely, because once you get that, then you can make those things sound right together, and it is so many of the same notes. It's that D and the F sharp are in that B, and they're also the first 2 notes of that D. And that's why they go so well together. They share 2 different notes. And that's also how they built that tonnets chart that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week even. But it has everything is laid out in like triangles, where you can see any 2 chords that are listed next to each other with the triangles share 2 notes in common. So like the C chord and the A minor chord would be next to each other because they share 2 of those notes. And then the A minor and the next chord would be next to each other because they share 2 notes. And in that case, it would be the F, because A minor is the A, C, and E, and the F is the F, A, and C. So they share that A and C in the middle. And that's one of the easier ways to figure out the major and minor relatives, is by taking that major triad and just going that minor third below it, and you end up with the minor. So you can figure out what you're working with.
Can you recognize that progression that RJS is talking about there?
Let's see here. We have A major, G major, F sharp minor, and E major. I like it. What key do I think it is? Well, if you got majors that are that close together, the E and the G, one of those is a borrowed chord, but the G and the A together make it feel to me like it should be in, if you got the G and A, I'm thinking D major is what it feels like, related to D major. And you're using a major 2, which would be the 5 of the 5, is what that E major would technically be in there. But the G major and the A major work, because that would be the 4 and the 5. So to me, that should be related to D major. But if you're playing it in A, Then is that Mixolydian, A Mixolydian with a borrowed chord? If you're considering A as the home place. Or if you're considering E as home base.
F major?
He played A major but flatted the 7th. There you go. So technically that'd be like Mixolydian, which would be related to that D. Because if everything was related to D major, you only have the 2 sharps. And so the only one that doesn't match, because you got the D major, the E major, the G major, and the A major. And everybody's obeying the rules there. With A major with the flatted 7th, he's adding that G in there, which makes that an A dominant 7th. And usually the dominant is played on the 5th degree of the scale. So that would make it related to D major. But if A feels like home, and A major feels like home, then I would say that this is an A Mixolydian. Oh, sorry. Is what that would feel like. Because that would be the A major with the flattened 7th. And B minor could work there because the B minor would be related to that D major, so it would be all the right notes there. But it doesn't have to be B minor for the lead. If you wanted to do a minor lead, you could have done it in the B minor was one choice. The other choice would be, I would say, F minor. Or is it F minor? Or would be F sharp minor. F sharp minor. Because we started with D as the home key, right? So F sharp minor and we talked about C minor already, right? No.
That's F sharp.
D minor.
F sharp minor?
F sharp minor would use the right notes there as far as it's using the F sharp, the C sharp, and the A, which are all in the key, because that's related to that D major. That would be the 3, the minor 3rd, related to D major. But then you would also be using a minor 2, which would be that E minor. So that's where that E major that you were using is kind of a borrowed chord to me. And that sounds like if we're related to the D major, that would be the 5 of the 5. Because the 5 would be the, from the D major, the 5 would be the A major, and the 5 from the A major would be the E major. But that's just to be able to, like, if you were trying to force it into a software, you could force it in by telling it it's the 5 of the 5 if it's not letting you do a major 2, if you're in a major key. I'm kind of talking in circles there, though. F sharp minor does not use G, correct. F sharp Phrygian or Locrian would use G. And that's where you get that metal sound. You get that flat 2.
F sharp minor uses the A. That's F sharp minor.
Yep. It's a nice sound. Now F major would be the black note with the B flat. All black notes, but with that A in the middle. And the F sharp minor is related.
Oh, F sharp minor or major sounds nice. That's it, right?
Yep. He needed a major sound. And you were using the A major and the G major. That's where I would go with D major would be the most natural, but you could borrow the chords like you did with the E major, would be the 5 of the 5. You could also go with...
oh, did he say E major for the last one?
Yeah.
E major? So
Yep.
actually, that sounds like a couple of songs now.
And there he is, yeah.
Can you
Nice.
name that song?
I like the walk down.
Did he tell us?
He actually said if you want to hear what I did, he sent us a link that we could listen to later, of course, if we wish. If we wish. Very nice. I like the progression, though, for sure. And again, analyzing things, what helps me to analyze things is seeing where I find major chords or minor chords next to each other. Because next to each other, major chords immediately screams to me the 4 and the 5. Because again, looking back at when we're looking at the 6 chords that we're normally working with, there's 3 majors and there's 3 minors. The 3 majors would be the 1, the 4, and the 5. So I try to find where the 4 and the 5 are together. And just because I could even be starting with a completely different chord. Like I hear a C, an F, and a G major chords, and I'm playing in the key of E minor, let's say. So E minor is a totally, it's a minor, not using any of those majors. I'm trying to listen for or look for where the two major chords are next to each other, and I'll consider those the 4 and the 5 and relate everything back to that. But just like we were talking about there, he was playing A major with the flatted 7, which makes that A mixolydian, which relates back to D major for the notes that we're actually using and the chords that we would actually be using diatonically. The last one doesn't feel right. That's the diminished. That's like the C sharp diminished. And then D. That's the one that feels really weird.
In a minor scale, the 4th is a major, right?
Nope. In a minor scale, the 1, the 4, and the 5 would still all be minor. But sorry, it's basically it's the 2, 3, and 6 relative to the major. But if you were looking at it as if like A minor, if A minor was the 1, it would be A minor, D minor, and E minor, for example. Which again, relative to that A, that's a 1, 4, 5 minor progression. But if you were looking at it relative to the C major, then that would be a 6, 2, 3 progression. But still same notes. It's just a question of which way you name it, and different naming it different ways can help you in different ways.
Now, when a composer writes a piece, what makes them decide to say, I'm in C major or A minor? Is it their progression approach?
A lot of times it'll be the first chord and the last chord, and where they spend most of their time, because you can use both. Using both in the context of, let's say you're playing a piece that's in C major technically, and on the staff it's showing no sharps. So you're in, and the first key or the first chord is going to be C major or have some variant of C major and version of C major. It doesn't have to be the first chord, but it somewhere in there you're going to have that C major because that's the 1, right? If you don't, you'll have the A minor in there, and you could have both.
So it's really about like how the 1 plays into the whole progression.
Context, exactly.
If you're hitting A more than C, then
it's going to feel minor.
Are A minor.
Yep, exactly. It'll feel more A minor, and even with the pentatonics, because you could sit there and run pentatonics all day, just G, A, C, D, E, because that's either A minor pentatonic or C major pentatonic, depending on how you're landing. C major, A minor, A minor, C major. And it just depends on where you land or where you emphasize as to which it feels like, but it's technically all the same notes, and it's just how you're using them. But on the keyboard especially, that's one of my favorites, is the A minor and C major, because that pentatonic is just all white notes, and it's just these 3 and those 2, and you can just go up and down all day with that, which is a lot of fun. It's one of the ways, and you'll feel vocal melodies come out of that too, because so many songs use, for a vocal melody or for the main melody of a song, or for a simplified melody, they'll frequently use that pentatonic like that. And if not, it'll at least help you get the skeleton structure of what you're trying to figure out for what they're doing, because that also makes a lot more sense when you're going through a song. Once you figure out which of the pentatonics work for it, that makes it so much easier as well. In that case that RGS was talking about, if we were dealing with D major as the home key technically, would be the D, E, F sharp, A, and B would be what feels right. So to me, that would be either the D major pentatonic or the F sharp minor pentatonic. And either way, they both sound great, right? I mean, you've got nice notes in there that are to work with, and both of those fit. So you could sit there and run melodies with that all day. Again, very simplified melodies, because you're doing pentatonic instead of diatonic, so you're only using 5 notes per octave instead of 7. You're leaving out 2 of them, which makes it sound a little more simplified. But you're basically, the other thing I like about the pentatonics is that you're basically running 4 notes of what would be a chord shape, like for that A minor, for example. If you just leave out that D, and you just play the A, C, E, and G, in this case A, C, E, and G, That's just an A minor 7. And so if you take the A minor 7 chord and just hit that one white note in the middle, that gives you the minor pentatonic scale. Because all we're doing is the 1, 3, 5, 7, and if we add the 4, we end up with the 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, which is the minor pentatonic. And then those same notes, if we start from the C, we're looking at the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Going from the C, D, E, G, A. And then we were looking, yeah. In that video that we were talking about the other day, just taking any progression, like if we take that same progression that we were just talking about, starting with an A major, and just playing it different ways, right? You can have it as where you're just playing just playing the chord on its own. You can also break it up. You could break it up. Break it up. So many different ways that you can do different things with just the same idea. And you can use different ones for different chords. You just put them together like Lego blocks, and you're building a song. And you can always change how the flow feels later, depending on how you feel a melody line running through. Like I had something going on guitar earlier where it was just a 4-chord thing, but it was a minor chord, a major chord, and a major chord, and it felt nice going around in the circle. And I could take that, put it in the looper, and just jam along to it. And again, just figure out the one pentatonic scale that works. One of the pentatonic scales that works comfortably with that sound, and just run up and down it all day, because that's one of those. It's a good exercise. It's good to help your ear. It's good to help feel like you can do things. You'll feel the other melody lines come out from there. I also can figure out which notes to add in addition to the ones that we're already using in the pentatonic to make it the diatonic scale based on the positions where they are.
What was that progression that was like a zillion songs that we watched?
Usually it's 1-5-6-4. It would be one of them. Actually, it depends which way you're doing it. It could be like, let's say C major, 1, 5, 6, 4 would sound like that. But that whole 5, 6, 4, like you can move that 5, 6, and 4 around. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, when people get to that 6, now you can go down to that 4. A lot of people will walk that down. So they'll go from the 6, they'll go 6, 5, 4 on the way there. And that gives you a little bit of motion. Yep. Yep. And again, it depends on the bounce that you're using or the feel. And that'll again, it'll turn into 50 different songs. Look at you.
I like that progression. I can see why it's so popular across so many songs.
Absolutely.
When I play that for 2 rounds, I don't want to go 1, 5, 6, 4 on the second round. I really want to go 1, 5, 4, and depending on whether I hold the 4 or maybe go up to the 6.
See, for me, I would say try going from 1 to the 6 to the 4 to the 5. I think that's even better, because then that 5 really pulls you back to the 1 at the end.
Shifting into minor after that.
Oh yeah. And that's also where you emphasize, which notes you emphasize on your solos or on what you're the ideas you're getting across. That third, if something's going to go from a major feel to a minor feel, emphasizing the third of that minor chord. So whatever, if you're going to jump to, let's say, E minor, you would want to emphasize that G. in your solo stuff, because that's emphasizing the that minor third, because that's really hammering home. Yeah, we shifted to minor on that, and
Yeah,
that's where you really feel that.
and that progression, I mean, you can approach it so many different ways. Like, Stand By Me. What's the other song that does that?
Oh man, so many. There you go.
Yeah, it gets you.
Absolutely. And that's again, it doesn't have to be that one progression, but that is a fantastic one to use. So many different things use that one. I think the one that I was working on, I was trying to figure out what it would have related to. I want to say it was similar to like let's say it's a 6 to a 2, but it was, yeah, 6 minor to a 2 minor to a 5 to a 1. So I was doing like A minor, D minor, G major, C major. And the fact that it ends with that minor 2 to the 5 to the 1, that's a very common progression that you'll hear all the time in jazz and used in a lot of different places. It's a minor 2 and then a major or dominant 5 and then a 1. Very nice.
The two always throws me off a little, but
They're looking for my strings.
how the two relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's where in this case, I'm using a minor 2, but RJS was in the one he was talking about. He was starting with a major 2, or sorry, ending with a major 2. If,
Ending with a major two, yeah.
but again, it depends on how you what key you consider that. It was a good question though, because the chords were not in the usual positions, or we had one extra major chord that wasn't in the right spot to me, like in the way that I normally look at things. So it was just a different inversion or a different position that it was started from, different mode. That was the word I was looking for. So whether it was starting in Mixolydian, for example, A Mixolydian is the way I would have considered that. And I would have the D major. The E major was still kind of weird though, because that G sharp shouldn't really be there. But it does feel right. And that's where you're allowed to borrow chords. You're allowed to use chords that aren't part of just that little set of 6 that we started with. You don't have to consider yourself locked there, but understanding which ones work best or which ones have the best reason to work best or to pull you in the direction that you're trying to make the sound go, that also helps a lot. So it enables us to do that, which is good. A little bit of a whoosh going there.
Yeah, he
Not
didn't
too bad
throw the
against the
link in there
fans.
for that song, did he? Oh, he did.
Oh, yeah,
Ah.
that was in there. You want to see if you can bring that up? That'd be cool.
Unfortunately, the link is on my chat on this machine, and I'm on
Nah.
this. I'm improvising.
Yeah, yeah. Or if not, I can do it. It's up to you how you want to go.
I don't know if I know this song, if it is a cover.
I think it was an original, but I don't know for sure. It sounded like he was talking about an original.
go.
There we go. Nice. A little RJS. Let's see what it sounds like. Oh, I'm sure I'll like it. Let's see. Yep, yep. Very nice. Love it, RJS. Very cool. Very mellow sound. It's following along with the progression there.
Oh yeah, like Ian said, that was very atmospheric.
Exactly, exactly. I was doing a little bit of, trying to do a little bit of strings with that, and trying to check out the, starting with that, doing the A, G. And that E major definitely feels right, especially the way it was going around there.
See, the F, I think, is where I'm screwing up.
I think it was a F, wasn't it F sharp minor? F sharp A C.
Oh, that's why. That's it.
Yeah. And me throwing in that D in there, that was what I was hearing. But actually, that's because two of those notes are the same. Instead of that D major, that is the F sharp minor. Perfect.
I think I got it.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. And again, how you bounce it and how you work with it. All kinds of different options.
Even just the thirds work nice there.
Oh, yeah. That's the most concise way to dictate what chord you're in or what key you're in, because that you're telling it majors and minors, and by walking down like that, you can see the progression of them. See if you have two majors or two minors next to each other, and if you have two minors and two majors next to each other, usually that's the 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can kind of work from there because you have the two minors on the bottom, like the D minor, E minor, and two majors on top, F major, D major, if you're in the key of C. That's one way that I kind of use that as a landmark.
That's A major, right?
Mm-hmm. It's got the 3 sharps, yep.
So that is totally A major, right? No adjustments.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, he was talking about playing the G natural at one point. He was saying that he was flatting the 7 on the A. So A major would normally be with the G sharp, like you said, but he was flatting that. So that would be where the Mixolydian sound came from, because that's a dominant, A dominant.
Oh, yeah. The G should be sharp there, right?
Right, if you were playing an A. And that's why what I was saying is that it sounded more like, if you're using that natural G, that's only 2 sharps, so it feels like D.
If I was in A major, I'd be doing. That would be A major. Normally going A, G sharp.
That's G sharp minor too. I can see why he changed it though, because yeah.
Well, it adds a mood. Mm-hmm. His change really gave it that atmospheric mood.
And a kind of a unique. Yep, we see the chat. How's it going, St. Hayden? The question is, what's going on with the chords in terms of whether that was sharp or flat? Because in two cases, or in this case, as we're going down from that A to the regular G, we're using the regular G, and then the next one, and then on the E, we're using that G sharp. So that's where, in theory, like you normally would not see that together in a progression. Hey, nice. We got a spammer. Good to see you. Have a nice day. But we'll play a little song.
Always one.
And then you're just adding a note at the top of something like that can just make it sound different and allow it to come through better. It's all about what's going on. In one case, what we were looking at before, with this one, and looking at the circle of fifths, we were seeing what was happening with, again, the flat side on the left there, where you can see, again, the flat side on the left there, the different flatted keys going on, and then on the right side, you got all the sharps. So when we were talking before about the E and the A, we were dealing with the A having the 3 sharps, E having the 4 sharps, and getting in there. And then once you get to the B, you got all 5 sharps in there. And then once you go to 6 sharps, you're actually sharpening one of the other white keys to be a different white key. So it's just making something different over there. But you get the sense from it. And it all depends what key you want to play in. We do tend to play in the key of C a lot, but we have lots of different options. And what we'll probably do next time is we're going to start working on some of the flat keys. Start playing in E flat or playing in A flat and getting some of the flat side in there. Because playing in F is something that we already do because we get that B flat in there by itself. With the one flat. And then once you get to the key of B flat, you got the two flats in there. And going around that way. And we just add flats as we go, getting a little bit more complicated or a little more difficult if you're not used to playing them. But as you get yourself used to them, then it's, they're all listed right here. So this, once you get these 12 home keys down, especially if you work with the major and the minor, so that you get the relative major and the relative minor together, that would certainly help.
And for those paying attention to the chat right now, this is what happens when people think there's competition with streaming. Consider whether you watch these people's shows, because this is what they do to other people's shows. No respect. Should you watch their shows? Consider that they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Children will be children. It's all right.
Yeah.
Whatever. Not worth even worrying about. But the main idea is there's other stuff that we can look at and work on. One of the things was back to this whole thing over here. When I look at the chart on the top right over here, especially the pentatonic one, and seeing how it moves across the fretboard, certain things jump out at me. Like at the bottom, just to the left of where it starts the minor pentatonic run there, you can look at that as like a 1-3-1-3-5 pattern, and it repeats itself as you go diagonally up the neck. So you can do 1-3-1-3-5, and then it's 3-5-3-5-7, and then it's, because of the shift, because of that B string, it comes up to 6-8-6-8-10. And that way it's the same pattern, the same 5 notes, just repeating in 3 separate octaves, and by shifting slightly diagonally each time you do it, you're moving a little further up the neck, you're getting to a different position, but you can play the same phrase and make progress working up the neck. Once you get comfortable with that position and the inverted one of that, which is the 1-3-5-3-5, basically those 2 different sets of positions, you can move all up and down the neck using that same position and that same structure, and that way you don't feel like you ever get lost, and it feels like you're able to move instead of being locked into a box. Like a lot of people get stuck in, minor pentatonic box 1 or minor pentatonic box 2, or they get locked into a position like that, and everything they play kind of sounds the same when they do get locked in that way. And this way it kind of helps you to get unlocked from that and just be able to express ideas. And by doing it in a pentatonic way, you're only dealing with 5 notes. So it's not as complicated as it would be otherwise.
Oh, and any way you can find out and lock your creative box. When you do get into a box, any trick that helps you to get out of it musically is always good to have.
Definitely. And again, that's where we come up with different ideas and different songs that we can come up and play. We are going to look at some classical pieces, not today, but in general. We have some things we're going to go over at some point. I have some recordings of some classical pieces that I've worked on. I have some that I'm going to be working on going forward. That is one of the ones that I'm going to try to resurrect out of the closet, out of the.
There's the second one I learned.
There it is. But that's one of those things, just like the Chopin preludes that we talked about the other time. I don't know when they come back or when they don't. Like at one point, I got about 70% of that song back just by sitting down and playing through and realizing that once I remembered what the opening notes were, my hands just kind of guided me to the next ones. Not necessarily fluidly, not necessarily all at once, but definitely got through and made it happen. And that was one of the things that's just, when that stuff starts going through like that, it definitely helps. And again, whether it's different progressions or whether it's a certain style, the interval training that we talked about the other day, that wasn't one that we talked about here, but it was one that Tony and I talked about separately, talking about looking and being able to identify intervals on the sheet music and being able to see what a fourth looks like and what a fifth looks like and what a third looks like, because then it helps you to more easily pick out little chunks. When you're seeing what the chords are in something, you're not just seeing, oh, it's an A chord and a C chord and a D chord. You're actually seeing the intervals and which way they're stacked, whether it's an inversion, whether it's the root position. You can pick all of that kind of thing out from the sheet music just by, paying attention to the spacing that's there. If you're going from a line to the next line, that's a third. If you're going from a space to the next space, that's a third. If you're going from, and then if you're going one more than that, if you're going from a space to a line that's beyond that, then that's a fourth. Recognizing those kinds of jumps make it that much easier. Seeing what the bottom note is on the staff, being able to recognize the bottom note of the chord so that you have a root, and then recognizing what the intervals are of the notes above it definitely helps to be able to see what's going on there.
Hey, Jake Zeke in the house. Good to see you, man.
Ah, Jake. Been a while, man. Saw you jump in the other day. That was good to see.
Yeah, I can recognize the inversions looking at the keyboard, like, C, C, but on the staff it didn't click in until she explained, and you explained, when you're looking at the dots in the staff, and you notice the dots that are not on a line versus the ones that are in the middle of the line, starting with the root note. So when you're looking at that on the staff, you're going to see 3 equal circles on 3 different lines.
Yep. And that's what makes it jump out at you that, hey, that's a major chord, or that's at least that's thirds, stacked thirds.
If I'm holding it this way, then you're going to see 2 dots that are equal to each other in space, and then this one off on its loneliness.
Yep. And the reason that it looks that way is because it'll go, when you go up an octave or down an octave, it'll go from a line to a space.
And then
so that's where
you're going to have the 2 dots on the bottom half with the top one hanging out by itself. So
yep,
that's the other inversion.
And in your head, you can see them that way and try to mentally flip that other one to the bottom. The one that's off by itself on the top like that. You can bring it to the bottom, and then you'll see, okay, that's what the chord is, and you'll recognize that it's in first inversion because that root note's up on top instead of at the bottom.
Yeah.
Or second inversion if that root note's the second note. Just different ways of being able to figure out where you are and which songs or which chords make sense from there.
And usually the only one that's a tough decision when I'm writing something is that first chord. How you invert the first chord kind of dictates any other inversion you choose in your progression. Like, if I do start my C this way, everything I'm going to afterwards wants to go a certain way because the way that I'm fingering this one.
Yep, you're getting a voice leading. And that's exactly what it's especially useful for, using different inversions. Because that way you can get everything feeling like it's moving down, or everything moving like up, or you can get it where one note sounds like the top note might go from here and then down and then back up. It's another way of having, getting motion or getting it to feel like your chords are going somewhere, even if it feels like, it is the same chords each time. You can change the inversions each time to make it so this time it sounds like it's going down. Next time it sounds like it's going up. Next time it sounds like it's going up and down.
It's good to listen to how those chords will sound with each other with different inversions, like C to G, this way, starting with root. Sounds different than, this way feels like it really does drop. Drop down to G this way.
Exactly.
When you go up to the G, it doesn't feel like a drop.
And that's where the different ones can feel like you're going in different directions. And again, throwing in borrowed chords is good too, because that way it can throw people off. Like they're expecting, it's going to go here. And you change it up on them.
When you're writing a progression like that, getting that drop effect is a strategic choice. Sometimes you want the music to feel like it's shifting down. And other times you might be shifting down, but you don't want it to sound like it is.
There it is. Just finding some gifts. There we go. So, different ways we can look at it there. Also, we had a couple of other videos that I had looked at. The main one that I was looking at was this. We were talking the other day about the diminished chords, and that's where I just wanted to show a little piece of what we had there, songs that use the diminished chords. And this one you probably wouldn't be able to read it because the text is really small, but this is from David Bennett Piano, and we've actually looked at his channel a few times before. He had some really good videos on there. He's actually sponsored by CuriosityStream for some of them. So like with this one, he's got a promo code over here for.
Sponsorship. I want to subscribe to them.
Yeah, and actually it's right here. They have a promo code right here where you get a full year for $14.99. I have no affiliation, but it's one of the things that he has right there on his page. And the songs right here, it's like a 20-minute video, and it lists, I'd say, about 15 or 20 different songs that all use diminished chords in them. Because we were talking about how you got your 3 major chords, your 3 minor chords, and that one diminished chord that's always annoying that nobody uses in songs. But here's a handful of songs. Because Tony was asking last time, he was like, "Do you know of any songs that use it?" I was like, "I know there are, but I couldn't come up with any in my head." But this is a whole list of them.
So there is a place for the 7.
Oh yeah, Benny and the Jets, "Don't Look Back in Anger," "Georgia on My Mind," "All Star," "My Iron
Benny
Lung."
and the Jets, really?
Yep.
That explains why that has such a unique sound to it.
hmm And in this particular video, he's just doing like little bits on each one. So like the Benny and the Jets part is like 1 minute and 10 seconds. So it's just a little section where he talks about the sheet music or talks about the section where it uses it and plays a little sample from there. And it's a good video. It goes through all of them, and it'll help you to get your ear around what the diminished sounds like, or where when it jumps out at you in a progression, you'll recognize it in the future. Just because again, like the A diminished. Were we doing A? Yeah, we're doing A. So you can do it that way. And each inversion brings you higher up, and if you can just like run those up and down the keyboard, and they sound very spooky. It's always got that sound to it, but that's a fully diminished chord. There's also the half diminished, or you can just do a diminished triad like they were talking about on the other, where you're just doing the root, the flat third, and the flat 5. Yeah, half diminished. Yep. Where like
diminishing the 7,
the main thing is we're not double flatting the 7 to make it a 6. So it's basically you're doing a root. In the case of, let's say, that B half diminished would be the B, the D, the F, because that's got that flat. That's the root, the flat third, and the flat 5. But then instead of what you would expect as the flat 7 is the A, and if it was fully diminished, it would be the A flat. So basically, if you do B, D, F, that's basically the minor 7 flat 5, or at least the minor flat 5 triad. And if you throw in that A, that's the minor 7 flat 5. And then the minor 7 flat 5 is also called the half diminished, because you didn't fully flatten to the A flat to make the full diminished. Because again, the fully diminished is where you're stacking the thirds the whole way up, and that half diminished, you're just not bringing that flat 7 down to the 6. Is the main difference.
This would be normal diminished. This would be, or this would be.
Which one? You're on B. So yeah, B, D, D, F, and then A flat would be the fully diminished. And that's where, because if you bring that B to the top, then that's the D diminished, and then move the D to the top is the F diminished, and then the A flat diminished. And that's where that relation works only in the fully diminished chord, because that's stacked thirds, and that it brings you back home when you go to the next third up. When you do the half diminished, you're just doing the minor set, or the flat 5, the flat 3, and the flat 7. And it's not used often as the half diminished with the 7 in there, but it's just a way of also calling it the minor 7 flat 5, or the minor flat 5 triad, where you're using a flat 3 and a flat 5. Because that relates to the C major, which is all white notes. So the B diminished, or the B half diminished, you're doing all white notes.
So by bringing that A down to an A flat.
That is technically a double flat. Double flatted 7, because the 7 was flatted once and then flatted again.
It works good though.
Mm-hmm. And going back and forth, it works nicely too. Yeah.
I could work with that.
And as far as just the tons of things, resources that you can find on YouTube. I mean, this is just under chord progressions is one of the things that I searched for recently, and just tons of stuff. Whether it's how to sound like Jerry Garcia, or what everybody can learn from Jerry Garcia, or different one shape for all guitar arpeggios, or backing tracks for Fish songs, or Grateful Dead backing tracks, and Billy Gibbons guitar tricks and beginner piano stuff, and it's like you just all kinds of stuff. So the more you search for these kinds of things, the more your feed will just fill up with all these kinds of things. Scott's Bass Lessons, always highly recommend Scott's Bass Lessons. He's got great stuff over there. All kinds of things. But everybody's got their go-to guys for who they like for instructions, and if they don't, basically just do some searches on there, and you'll find just all kinds of people to check out. Because there is a lot for resources out there. Scott's Bass Lessons is one that I like more than most.
Whether you go to an actual music instructor or you just find influence in a musical artist, yeah, Jerry Garcia kind of was a musical instructor just by example.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how did he do that? I mean, that's one of the things I always like to do is just, especially when I started learning better or learning more by ear, it made more sense to just, throw stuff on and listen. Because at some point, like when I got my bass originally in 2009, I think it was, 2009 or 2010, around that time frame is when I got the 5-string bass. When I did, I got a couple of different books. Some were bass exercises and bass training stuff to get your hands worked in and all that kind of thing. 'Cause I figured I'd just go in strong, play work really hard at it for a couple months and be ready to go. And it kind of did work that way, but it was one where seeing the different types of exercises was very useful, where sometimes some were just meant to basically toughen up your fingers. So you're doing exercises that are really just, making sure you're actually playing and actually doing a bunch of fretting to get your fingers really worked in and make sure that everything feels comfortable and that you're able to reach everything and all that kind of thing. So, and again, bass is very different than guitar for me as far as the being able to stretch the distance for the lowest frets on the 5-string. I have quite large hands, so for me it's comfortable and it's easy. Then when I play on my guitar and I'm trying to play, tight chord shapes way up high on the neck, everything is very tight because I have big fingers and they're hard to fit into the smaller frets. So it's a trade-off. Things like piano, the reach is an advantage because I can reach and play some nice intervals just with one hand. I can keep that going so it sounds like a half a string section just using one hand to hit a note at the bottom and a tenth or the third an octave higher. Because that always, like you're saying, that's one of those that the root and the third is a beautiful sound, but when you spread them out, put the third an octave higher, and now it sounds like much more spread out. So that's just a C and then the E up next octave. And you can up and down with a couple notes at a time, just playing some intervals. But that's just staying in that in those particular chord tones, which are very important, especially when you're doing solos. You don't have to always hit chord tones, but landing on chord tones is big, especially the 5. Land on the 5, land on the 3. The 3 is one of Jerry Garcia tricks that I like a lot. Not his specifically. A lot of people do it, can't own it with one person, but you'll hear a lot of examples in his playing. Where when you think everything's going to land back at the 1, and again, the Grateful Dead is an example of a band where you've got 2 guitar players, at least 1 keyboard player, a bass player, 2 drummers. You've got a lot of stuff going on. So everybody is kind of free to do whatever they want, and the song still kind of holds itself together. Where if you're playing in a trio or something, you can't be as loose with what you're doing, or you kind of lose the shape or the structure of the song in between. So it's about the presentation. It's about the orchestration, the instrumentation of what you're putting together. But I do like the fact that, again, with Jerry, he's able to he lands on that 3, and it sounds unsettled. It sounds like that's not where you wanted to land necessarily. Like it doesn't feel like that's home, but it feels like it's a great landing place because you land there, and you're only 2 notes away from the 1 or the 5. So either direction, if you want to start running either way, you've got another comfortable spot right over there. So you go from the 3, 2, 1, or the 3, 4, 5. And that is, a springboard for your next part of your solo, rather than just landing on the 1 and now what am I going to do? Because if you keep landing on the 1 after every single phrase, it's going to always sound stale a little bit because you're going to always be landing in the same place or always starting from the same place. So trying to incorporate other landing places, like as you're doing a solo, think of them as landmarks. Like you started at the 1, now kind of work your way up 2 and around the 5 and land there for a second, and then work your way up and around the 2 maybe, the next octave up, and then to the 6 or whatever. Like you're just working to each of the notes. Those, the 2 and the 6 aren't chord tones to hit, but those are just notes to throw off from chord tones. They're still in the scale, but you would be building minor chords off of those.
Well, plus the 3 in a scale shares 2 notes from the 1.
Yes, exactly.
Half of the, well, 2/3 of the 3 is a 1.
Yep. And the other thing is the 3 also shares 2 notes with the 5, because the 3 is the 3, 5, and 7. So the 5 is the 5, 7, and 9, or 2. So recognizing that those chords together, that's why it always sounds good. In my opinion, it always sounds good to jump to one from one of those to the other, because you're moving in thirds. 2 of those notes are already there. So it almost just sounds like that diminished thing where you're just changing which inversion you're dealing with. But what you're actually doing is changing chord, but using the one that is most similar to the others. And that, again, you don't have to do it, but it's always a way that you can get to a different chord or a different chord sound. Like if something's sounding stale in C major, you can just throw in an E minor or an A minor, because those each share 2 of those notes at any time in place of that C. And then 2 of those notes are still going to be what other people are playing, and it's going to sound like a C6 if you're throwing in the A, or it might sound like a 7, C major 7, if you're playing the third, the minor third, because you're playing that B, which is in there, so gives you that kind of a sound. A lot of different options.
Yeah, I feel like the 3 doesn't get used a lot in progression choices, even though it does fit with the 1 and the 5 so well. It tends to be the one that gets ignored a lot in a lot of the popular progression.
One that I saw today actually was, I don't recall the order, but the chords that were in there were the minor 3, the 4, the minor 6, I think, and the 5. So like you could I mean, it could be similar to what RGS was doing, but in using the ones like the 6 would be the minor, the 5 would be major, 4 would be major, and the 3 would be minor. So if you were playing around with A minor at the beginning, the A minor, G, F, and E minor. Not necessarily in that order, because that's just a descending. So just mixing those around, let's say. So if you went from, let's say, the 3 to the 6 to the 4 to the 5. And then when you're going back to that 3, it's one of the most similar chords to the 5, because it has 2 of those same notes. So it doesn't sound like you're going that far. It doesn't sound like it resolves on that 3 necessarily. You're starting on the 3, and that 5 that's in there feels like it wants to pull back to the 1. So maybe the first time around it's the 3, 6, 4, 5. And the next time it'll do with the 3, 6, 5, 1. Yeah, and it sounds good whichever way you're doing it there. Those inversions work nicely. And that one sounds, there's a Cyndi Lauper song that's coming to mind with that one.
Yeah. I was trying to think, like, what does that remind me of? Oh, it's coming. Day and time after day.
Ah, there you go. It's just a matter of going around enough times, yep. Yes, indeed. I like it.
That's why Cyndi rock.
That one. Yeah. That one, or actually even that one, or that one. Yeah, that's better. But just having it there, just as reference. Again, I really like that one, and that was one where it looks like this was posted a couple of years ago, and his website only had a few hundred people there. So if we can send some traffic his way, that would definitely help. Let me get his video back up on that screen so we can see it better. It's over there.
Yeah,
but I really like the layout. Yep, that's what we're bringing here. It is. Yeah. Let me bring this over here. I think I was his 280th follower. Now, there. And it is John Pill. Pill. And I just subscribed earlier. Yep, Pill. And this particular one is the 3 Beatles chord progression tricks, and it's got that colorful circle of fifths, I think, is in the thumbnail.
Yeah, subscribe.
Yep. And that's, again, one of those things that I'm happy to drive traffic to people's pages, especially when they have good information like this. And this just jumped out at me because it had the major, the minor, which ones have flats, which ones have sharps. It's information that, again, I have the circle kind of memorized, but the minor, I don't necessarily have them off the top of my head, like which 6 chords immediately are in which key. But this is a way where somebody says, I'm playing a song in F minor, I can just glance at this and I know the 6 chords that we're using. And if I really want the 7th chord, it's also right next to it. So we can see what that is as well. Just by taking the one that's just hanging off the edge there and just play it with the flat 5, and you end up, in this case, if we were playing an A flat or an F minor, we would be dealing with the G minor flat 5 as the 7. It's the one right before where we're getting into. So, good to know.
The right side of the chart, I can pick up really quick.
Yep.
The left side takes me a moment.
Yeah, and that's where, if the left side is what takes a moment, then what we should start doing is trying to focus a little bit more on doing our, when we go over chords and scales and all that, we'll start working our way around the left. You've already said that you like F, I believe, the F major, D minor, you like that kind of comparison, right? Yep, F major and D minor is the relative minor there. There we are. Actually, is that? No, it's F, D minor and F would both have just the one flat. So it's just the B flat and everything else is white notes. Yeah. There you go. But what you were trying to do before, that would have been what it feels like with D major, because D major has the F sharp and the C sharp, so that's where that was coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you recognize...
I do like D minor. I write a lot, actually, in D minor.
And if we went one further, then we got the B flat major and the G minor, which have the 2 flats. Those are dealing with the B flat and the E flat. Starting on the B flat, and then it's all white notes except for the E flat. B flat, C, D.
Okay, so D flat minor at D.
Oh, sorry, I was saying B flat minor.
Oh,
Baker. Only the B flat and E flat, everything else is white notes. It feels weird, right? Because it feels like they want to be sharps.
Especially trying to do the scale.
Just try to do those first 4, like if you do the B flat, C, D, and E flat. You're throwing in that D flat, but that's not there. That'd be a C instead. B flat, C, D. So there's 2 white notes in the middle. Starting on the B flat there. I gotta get my meticulous fix.
Much easier when I actually see you do it.
It's all good. But that's exactly how it is. Like normally when you're trying to work on it, we could also do it in just the key of, going back to the key of F, where it has just the B flat. But that is where it's weird, because it's starting on a key where you're starting on a black note. So it's a black note, and then C and D are white notes, and then the E flat. And then everything else is white notes for the rest of it.
Oh, you're starting with B flat.
Correct, yeah.
Gotcha.
That was what was messing it up. Yep.
Gotcha. Right?
And then it's all, yep, and then it's the F, G, A, and B flat. Is the top half, so it's the 3 white notes and just the B flat. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And it feels so weird.
It does. Oh, that one's gonna take a moment to practice.
That's another good way to practice it. Actually, is once you do have the notes all laid out, just going up like 1 2 3 2 3 4 3 4 5.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I got to get the first four,
Yeah,
and then
and build from there. Yeah. Ta-da!
yeah, it's that B to C that feels a little weird
And the chord is also kind of feels weird because the B flat being on the bottom, it would be B flat, D, and F is the major chord. B flat major.
there.
So
See,
you're
it's
starting
so
with a
easy.
black note on the bottom.
It's so easy for you guys to rip through that on a guitar, but man, on a piano, that is a tricky scale to like wrap your fingers around. Even my fingering isn't doing what, like, I'm usually pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
thumb, pointy, middle with,
Yeah, exactly,
I
and that's why.
usually will roll pretty good with any scale, but this one, the thumb, when you jump to that E flat, the thumb, gotta
And that's why actually I would even start that one with the index finger on the B flat and the thumb on the C. So I get to the middle finger on that E flat.
yeah,
So I'm
my
using my.
thumb, the thumb shift feels weird, and then when I'm going past it, the ring finger, the A to the B flat, this area,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like my fingers are so high up, I'm accidentally hitting black keys.
Now what I do is I start with my second finger, so my index finger on the B flat and my thumb on the C. Is that what you're doing? Or are you putting
Yeah,
the C on the B flat?
I'm trying to keep my fingers from like my fingers are practically at the top of the black keys just to play this scale.
No, yeah, yeah. So instead of putting your thumb on,
I'm hitting the top of the black key, which is
but don't
getting in
don't
my
start with
way.
the. Yeah, and you won't get as good dynamics either because the further out on the key you are, the more you can play dynamics. The closer into the top of the key you are, the less dynamics you get. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
not as much on electronic, but because you're not,
Oh,
the key doesn't have as far to travel up
with
there.
a weighted keyboard, it's even more
Right.
relevant because with a
Because you
weighted
might not be
keyboard,
able to press it.
the
Yeah.
higher I go up, the less it actually picks up, the weight.
So try this.
Playing at the
Try.
bottom.
So don't play with the for the B flat. Don't use your thumb, but use your index finger with the idea of playing with your index finger there and your thumb on the C. So you're going
Ooh,
index, thumb, index, middle,
totally.
and then you
You
scoop the
got
thumb
it.
under for the F.
You got it. If I do the thumb as the second note, this
Right.
actually does feel
Because that also eliminates the other problem. Because then when you scoot
Oh my
the
god.
thumb under for the F, then the ring finger is what gets you that B flat.
So I have to program my brain that like some scales don't lend themselves to starting with my thumb on my right
Yes,
hand. Oh,
correct.
hadn't
And
thought
that's
of
where
that.
and finger the notes that you're hitting are more important than the fingering you use to hit them. But the fingering should be comfortable and repeatable.
Oh, oh, I totally feel it now.
Yep, yep.
So
Where it gets
yeah,
different is when you're going to try to hit that chord. Because if you're going to hit that B flat D F, like I'll do that with my index, middle, and ring finger. But for some people, they would probably go maybe index, middle, pinky. Because that way, again, your thumb's not all the way up there like that if you're using your index on that B flat. But being comfortable with being able to hit chords in different positions, whether it's always with the thumb on the bottom or whether you're using the index freely like this, being flexible will allow you to play in other keys more comfortably.
yeah, really got to be conscientious of which finger I'm using there for those hard ass scales that start on the black keys.
Yep. And the next one around would be E flat if we were doing that. So E flat has three flats in it. So it would have the B flat, the E flat, and the A flat. And for that one, I also start with the index finger. And then I scoot back under for the thumb going to the C. Yep.
Not getting that fifth or that sixth.
The D and the E flat. Are you hitting that C with your pinky? Because actually, that's where I would bring the thumb back under for that C, and then C, D, E flat.
I'm not getting this one.
There it is. And for that one, for the chord, the major chord is the E flat, the G, and the B flat. And for that one, I do end up playing high on the keys, or I have to use the index and ring fingers for the E flat and the B flat. Otherwise, I am way up on the keys. So it is, and that's a comfortable stretch for me, but not a lot of people would find that comfortable to get from the E flat to the B flat with the index and the ring.
That one is harder than the B flat. I think I'm feeling okay with the B flat.
Yeah.
This one gonna take me a moment.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we're going through the hardest ones now because of the fact that you're not as comfortable with the flat side as you were with the sharp side. Because I noticed that when we went to G flat, which is the one that has all of the black keys in it, that was easier because that was just going. We're using the B and the F are the only white keys. See how that feels a lot easier, even though it's a lot more complicated in terms of how many flats there are, just because there's so many flats that everything's black notes.
I can play that one so easy. Yeah, that one rolls across the keys nice, and my fingers aren't way up on the blacks.
And what about the one right next to that is D flat. So if we start with D flat, there's only 5 flats, but it's still all the black notes, but we're using F and C. So the white notes we're going to use are F and C. Yep.
Okay, so if I start with my thumb there.
See, I don't. I start with my index again. So I do index, middle, and then thumb on the F.
I think with the way I'm fingering and playing so high up here, it invites me accidentally hitting black keys as I'm trying to. Right here.
Yep.
That F to G flat. My fat ass fingers are. They really need to be hitting down here on the white area, not in the middle of the black key and the white key.
And actually, I'm hitting very low on the keys like I normally play because I'm going index, middle, and then thumb for the F, and then index, middle, ring, and then thumb for the C. So I'm staying like way down at the bottom of the keys, and I'm just hitting all the black notes are going to be index, middle, or ring. So I'm starting with index, middle, and then thumb, and then all 3, thumb, just shifting that thumb under between the E flat and the F, and between the B flat and the C.
I'm starting to recognize where my fingers do get in the way. All the keys that have a split above them, like
Hmm.
the F, when you get beyond the like first inch and a half, you are now you got half the space for the key. So if I'm
Right.
playing the F and I'm playing it up here where I'm next to the black key, my finger is fatter than the area of the key.
But that's what
Whereas
I'm
if
saying
I'm
is
playing it at the bottom, I
yep.
gotta
When I'm playing that
the
F,
whole key.
when I'm playing that F, I am playing at the very, very bottom. I'm like almost off the bottom of the key because I'm using
Yeah.
my index and middle on the two white notes or on the two black notes. Because you can actually hit them at the same time. Like if your thumb is hovering on that F, right, at the very, very bottom, as if you were just playing F major, like where you would play the F way down there, and then reach over with your index and your middle to hit that D flat and E flat with your thumb still kind of hanging there. You can just, and then the idea being that you're not way up in the keys that way.
I have to be more conscientiously aware of those keys that are like that, and me pushing my hand too high up on the keyboard, where that becomes an obstacle.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
good to be
thing
able to play there
that
too,
I've
though,
been
because
fighting
some
with my
chords,
whole piano life.
some chords will be that way though, because like we were saying, like the E flat major, you're playing E flat, G, and B flat, and a lot of times you would need to be way up in there if you're playing. So your middle finger is like way up at the top of that, G,
Yeah.
just because of where you're sitting.
I can't actually bring my hand down because you're hitting two black keys with your thumb and your
But that's the thing is,
my ring.
what I'm doing is I'm hitting my index and my ring for those two black keys, and that way I'm hitting the very bottom of the black keys, and my middle finger is right in the middle there. And that's what I'm saying is like you don't. I almost never, or I try to never use my thumb on the black keys unless it's something specific, like one of the chords from the Chopin Prelude was like had like a thumb crossing two black notes at the bottom.
So if you're playing E flat major, what's the E flat? What finger are you using for the E flat?
Index finger again, and then right from index to thumb.
Well, no. If you're playing a chord, like
Yeah,
I'm playing a chord right
I would still
now, I'm
do.
using my thumb.
I would still be using index and ring for the two black notes, but again, to me, that's not a hard stretch. Like that's not a big stretch to go from my index to my ring with the middle in the middle, and that way my middle is actually hitting right before or just
You're
below.
using the middle for the G.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, I'm doing it. It does not feel comfortable.
Yeah. Then if it's not comfortable for you, then you definitely don't want to do that. But for me, I'm saying that's one of the
No.
ways that I avoid hitting.
I can barely stretch them across.
For me, part of it is the fact that I have very long ring fingers. So for me, using the ring, and even on guitar, actually, I've had people like look, and for my buddy, he uses his pinky for things on the fattest strings, and for me, that's like a weirdly almost impossible stretch because my pinky is shorter compared, but my ring finger can reach very easily. So I can play big stretches just using my ring finger instead. But yeah, anything if it starts to hurt your hands or anything, you definitely got to stop or not do the stretching like that.
Well, I feel like I need to stretch them right.
Oh, if it's not hurting, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't like, oh my God, my hand.
If I do it
As a broken
pointy
chord
finger,
almost.
Pointy finger, ring, pinky. This feels okay.
A lot of times, instead of if they're doing three, instead of one note per fret, like we do on guitar a lot, where you'd have one each of your four fingers, each one has their own fret that they own. On a bass, a lot of times they'll teach it as three frets, and they'll go index, middle, pinky, and that way you're not trying to stretch too far because especially on the end of the bass neck towards the headstock, everything is so much further apart that if you try doing, you have one, you have two, you have three, you have four. Like for me, I can stretch those okay, but a lot of people they would consider that to be too far of a stretch or an uncomfortable stretch to be able to go from up to the 4 like that. So a lot of times they'll just go 1, 2, and then pinky for the 3, and just leave the ring finger out of the equation. And they'll just do positions where it's, open 1, 2, and then pinky, open 1, 2, pinky. For me, it's more comfortable to do all 4. But I also don't always do, the open fingering like that. A lot of times I'm playing pentatonics anyway, so it's a lot of like 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 9, 7, 9. I don't have it plugged in right now, so you don't hear it, but
I feel it.
you can feel it. The thump on the low B. I could plug him in later. But I broke a string on the guitar earlier today. I haven't broke a string in years. And I was tuning up the guitar, and I was doing the bending like we were talking about. When I tune up the guitar, I like to tune in a note and then do some bending with that note just to make sure that after a bend and coming back down, that it's actually in the right way and it's still in tune. And when I was doing that on the high E string, I did snap it. I was like, what? So I did restring the SG today. So brand new strings. They're still settling. I'll have to tune it up again.
Gonna snap one.
Yeah, and especially because I was using 10s on there where the thinnest string is 10, and now I'm using 9s, so the thinnest string is a little bit thinner than it was before, so that's also a little adjustment. But for the other guitar, I bought 12s as the thinnest string, so in this case, I have 2 strings that are thinner than 12. I've got a 9 and an 11, and then it goes 16, 26, 36, 46. The other set starts with 12 as the very thinnest, so like 2 of the strings are on this set are thinner than the thinnest one on that set. But that's where we'll see with for drop tuning is what I would use that one for, and I would use that one for the Dean that I have, the Dean Razorback, as opposed to the SG. The Dean Deanie. I was trying to see if I had the strings over here, but I think, no, I put them back over on the other side. But there were Ernie Ball Slinkies. On this one were 9s, and then, like I said, on the other it's the Mammoths, the 12s. But I haven't put those on yet. Main idea was, what I did, I didn't realize actually how old and grungy the other strings were looking, but like these are looking all new and shiny now.
Well, you gotta look at my keyboard. You want to talk about grungy?
It's a little bit different though between a keyboard and a guitar, but it held pretty well, it seems like. Could use a retuning though for sure, because I did take it completely apart. I had all the strings off. I gave it a little cleaning, put it back together. One thing I should have done is put some kind of oil on the fretboard, because I can see where by the thickest string the fretboard is just a little bit lighter. It's like a little bit lighter than the rest of the wood, and getting some oil in there would help it out. So it's drying out a little bit. Nothing bad, but one of the big things. Yep. One of the big things that makes this guitar so nice to play is just the binding that you won't see on all guitars, but where your finger would normally be traveling along the frets here, you'll see that there's like yellow along here, or white or whatever. That is a plastic section to make it so that you can slide more smoothly up and down. So like I don't feel the edges of the frets, like it doesn't feel sharp or anything when I go along the edges like that. That's important when you're playing. So that's where.
Do all guitars do something like that, or is that unique to them?
It's not unique to them specifically, but it has to do with the different levels of guitars. Like if you get the most entry-level guitar, like it won't have any of that. As a matter of fact, I have one that my buddy gave me over here, which was a Jackson. Sorry, a Johnson, a Chinese-made Johnson. Yeah, it has and no electronics inside. So it's a Strat style with no electronics. But actually, on the frets, you can actually see that all you have is the side of the fretboard here. The fretboard is the darker color, and it doesn't have really a binding. So it's like you can feel the frets a little bit more. They're not bad, but if I were trying to play up high, especially, I can feel where. Right in here, you can feel the edges of the frets a lot more. And I feel like if I were trying to slide or whatever, I feel like I would probably, cut my hand up a little bit on these frets because I can feel them. That's one of the things that you can also fix in setup. They can do redress the frets where they'll try to get those edges down. But by having a guitar with a really nice binding on there, that is one of the differences. So when you're feeling a guitar, like that's one of the things that you'll notice is that a higher quality guitar has that very smooth feel, and you won't feel any jaggedness on the frets at all.
Hi, Minkley. Oh, am I not coming through loud enough? Let me
I
switch
can
over
hear you.
to the other headphones.
There you go. Didn't realize Tony was low. We can fix that though. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. I am technically usually a bit louder.
Yeah, I hear you good.
Okay, good. And I can hear you solid.
It's good to see you, Minkley.
Mm-hmm. Learning about all kinds of stuff. We always like learning stuff. Lots of stuff to learn. We had some keyboard stuff. We had some guitar stuff. Got some songwriting stuff also, in terms of which chords to use where. And that's where that whole circle of fifths was coming in for that. Some of the progressions that we were using before were definitely ones that we should be working back into. And that's where progressions like we talked about with the 1, 6, 4, 5, or any combination of those four chords, what we like about those the most is if we're playing in C major, we're just dealing with the C, the A minor, the F, and the G. So you got no black notes that you have to worry about. It's all white notes. But as we expand around the circle of fifths here, we can use any key. And if we have the circle of fifths here as our reference, we can see what chords we need to use for everything. Because in this case, when we're talking about C, F, G, and A minor, you can see that on the circle of fifths, that's those top three and the relative minor of our one chord. So any chord or anywhere we go around that circle, if we wanted to play in the key of A, we would just go to A, and we'd be using A, D, E, and F sharp minor, or G flat minor. But F sharp minor because we're on that side, the sharp side, where we have three sharps going on. And that's where you can see it in the treble clef, to see those three sharps there. You'll be able to see what key you're in, and that way they don't have to sharp each note as it goes along on the clef, or as it goes along on the sheet music. And you'll just see that that's where they are.
Oh, and we will be exploring those popular progressions more in the future.
Yep. Even from the, what was that chord pack I got? The Unison chord pack. I got that a while ago. And that had a couple of sections that had very popular chord progressions. At the same time, some of the videos that I looked at, some of them are, hey, 30 of the most common chord progressions. Other ones are, chord progressions from the top 50 songs on whatever lists, just to see which chord progressions are most common or come back around most frequently.
Oh, and what I love with that Unison pack is they also give you some unusual chord progressions, not common ones, that are really fun to play with.
Yeah. And I believe the other one that I was thinking of was, let's see, what was that one? Hook Theory. That's right, Hook Pad. Remember that one? We looked at that at one point, and I think it was, yeah. With that one, one of my favorite things about it was the way that you could start a progression. Like, let's say you had a song that you had three chords that you really like the way these three chords come together, but you don't like the fact that it sounds unresolved, and you don't want to just go to the same chord that everybody else goes to. So, like in the example of that 1, 6, 4, 5, maybe.
Welcome to my challenge.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Hook Theory is really good for. And let me see here.
Well, like unresolved chords for me drive me crazy. Like, once I get that itch for a chord to resolve, until I hear it, I feel like I'm in suspended animation.
Yep, and that's one of Trey Anastasia's big tricks, is to keep that suspense going. He's such a master of suspense or of tension and release, where that tension or wrong notes, or technically notes that don't sound like they're right, can give you that tension and build it up, and it gets, and then boom, it lands right in that nice sweet spot. And the fact that it made, making it uglier before you make that landing makes it the sweetness of the landing that much sweeter.
Yeah, if you're working on like horror music and things like that, that really goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Let me bring this up a different way over here, because this one is again one of the ones that I really like. This being popular chord progressions is part of this page's tab here, and yeah. So like this is s02e60hooktheory.com is the website, and this is just, I just drilled down to one that was talking about popular chord progressions.
1564.
Yep. And in this case, they're saying that there are 487 tabs that use that particular progression, and they have a little play button there. So if it's sharing sound,
Everything's gonna be alright.
and you recognize that as like 100 songs.
Right.
And just like you were saying before, like instead of C, G, A minor, F, in some cases you'd go C, G, A minor, F, and the second time around C, G, F, F, and that way you just land at that F early and stay there. Is one idea. But again, it actually tells you, how many different songs. Like you can say over here, you could look through all the songs because these songs all have
Oh wow,
that
they
progression.
got a list of all the songs that use that progression. Wow, that's useful. Yeah, and it is Pachelbel there.
Oh yeah. And all these others. And again, it's, you can go to the view all and you'll see all 487 that use it. But then you can, there's Pachelbel's right here with
Oh yeah,
15634.
15634.
And what I really like about that is that you're getting basically everything except the two involved, the 2 and the 7. The 7 we were leaving out anyway, but then
They're
you're getting all the rest
assholes.
of them. And the 2 we can leave out too because he's an asshole too. But
Well,
the 1,
yeah,
5.
and going to the whole resolution thing, the 2 and the 7 instigate that kind of mood where a song like Pachelbel doesn't really need that kind of tension.
Mhm.
A 2 or a 7 with that kind of progression.
The fact that it comes back around on itself if you just let it keep running. But they also give you 37 songs
Well,
that use that exact progression.
They're also ignoring the second half of that progression.
Right, exactly.
Pachelbel does have a second half to it.
Yep. And then they have ones that are effective in all genres, like the 6-5-4-5, and that one is kind of you're bouncing back and forth. So you're going 6-5-4-5, 6-5-4-5-6. You're just going from like that A minor, G, F, G, A minor, G, F, just going back and forth between those 3 all day. It gives you that kind of a feel.
November Rain. That's how you play it.
What else do we have here? Magic changes.
Well, that's very
1645.
useful. This is off the Hook Theory website?
Yep. This is under
What's
the Hook Theory
address for
website.
that?
This is hooktheory.com. And in this case, when I did the search, a Google search, one of the pages that was listed was about the chord progressions, or actually listed as popular chord progressions. And this is under the Theory tab, Common Chord Progressions. And the one that we were just talking about, are effective in all genres, the 6-5-4-5. This one was those magic changes. That's the 1-6, the 1-6-4-5. And they say there's about 141 tabs in here that all use that one. And of course, everybody recognizes that one. I mean, everything from what Big Girls Don't Cry.
Fantastic. Yeah, this is a fantastic resource.
Oh yeah, and the fact that any of these that are listed down here, Stand By Me, like you can just hit play and listen to a little bit of whatever progression is there, because they have, this is just like you were talking about with MIDI. These are MIDI breakdowns or MIDI representations of the songs, so there shouldn't be a problem. But like verse or chorus, you can select and play just parts of it.
When the night
And you can just do little pieces of like that part, or you want the other part.
And it gives you a chance to see how different artists approach the same progressions, because that's really what makes the song different from the other songs.
Yep. And they talk about the chords and melody, and down here they have like analysis of what the song is like, where it's chord and melody, or whether it's more melodic, or whether it's chord complexity. Like they have different ways of analyzing the song and where, which one it's most like. So I really do like that. And about the key of A major, and they tell you a little bit about it down there. And but the way that Hook Theory is laid out, like this whole little thing down here kind of gives you a feel for how you can use it as a songwriting tool. Like they go through a little thing where they're going and adding different chords in there, and shows you which chords you can add, it gives you sheet music at the end as a representation. So it's a really good tool for a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm going to get that sketch pad. This
Yeah.
looks like a very useful tool.
My favorite one, though, is actually a different part of it, which is the chord magic, I believe it is. We'll see if we get there from over here. We're just looking at a couple more changes here. Gaining popularity. What do we have? 1, 4, 6, 5. Yeah, again,
that's
same
interesting that they're they're gauging progressions that are up and coming, and
Mm-hmm.
if more songs are starting to use that progression that isn't typically used, that's a good thing to keep track of.
Yep, yep. And doing some cadence stuff over here. And just again, there's so many different things, there's so many different options that you could do here. But if we jump back to the top here and see about...
See, this really is a good complement to something like the Unison chord pack.
Mm-hmm.
This has the same kind of approach, much more colorful.
Yeah. And you can go to top songs and they'll like give you the progressions again with their MIDI layout so that you can get an idea. How about Hey Jude, for example? If we jumped into that just as a... right to the verse. Let's see what that sounds like. You can see the chord complexity.
Anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude.
So basically, you can tell that it's, it breaks down the full song, but it tells you what all of the, changes are. And when they're doing multiple changes in a bar, even, they have, you see those different striped colors where it's like, you might not be able to see it too clearly, but there's like green and blue when you're going to the 6 of the 5, and then they go to the 5 of the 5.
Wow, they really are studying hook theory.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a song like this and you look at how the verse is approached versus the chorus,
Mm-hmm.
and what makes that song so hooky.
Mm-hmm. And that is the whole thing. And if you were to open it in Notepad, it would bring you the whole song.
So simple.
Yep. You play little pieces of it just like that. The other one, it says there's YouTube, and then I think the top one is just piano, maybe. Let me see if that's what that is. Yeah, there you go. So you can actually, if you just say piano instead of YouTube, then instead of playing the full track, it's just playing you the MIDI piano parts that it has broken out for it. So same idea. If you wanted to hear just a little bit of the verse, but you didn't want to hear it with all the effects or the full song.
Oh, I'd be tearing up that piano buttons.
Most definitely. And again, just by dragging, you can drag chords in, and then it shows you, when you're plugging all these in, it shows you, same thing, the colors are telling you which note you're hitting or what flavor of note you're hitting. If is that a 2, is that a 5, is that a 1? It's telling you what note it is based on the color.
Again, I'm seeing a color relation here,
Mm-hmm.
like the one that you showed me in the circle of fifth charts.
Yep.
Seems like 1 is red, right?
Yep. And that was what I was doing as well. My thought was that there's 7 colors in the rainbow. If you look at the Roy G. Biv, you've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those 7 colors, and you've got 7 notes in a major scale. So to me, it just made sense you start red, root, boom, and then build from there, from that side of the spectrum to the other. So I go red, orange, yellow, 1, 2, 3, work my way up that way. And in this case, you'll see that the blue is the 5, green is the 4. So like whenever you're looking at chords, just at a glance, you know that the 1 is the red, the blue is the 5, green is the 4. The other chords that you would use in there as well. Down here, you'll see 6 is like a purple. You get the green and the blue slashes. Those are telling you, it's like a warning that telling you that it's not a chord that you would normally find here. It's borrowed, but in that case, it's the 6 of the 5, and the yellow one here is the 5 of the 5, or the dominant 5, dominant 7, 5 of the 5.
The ones with the squiggly lines are the borrowed?
Yes, exactly. Borrowed or chords that are not diatonic. They're not in the key that we're working with. So yeah, a borrowed chord.
Fancy.
And if you see like down here for the scoring of it, like off the chart, it's pretty much all around. It's like, yeah, that's the Beatles. It's very hooky. It's got chord complexity. It's timing. It's just all kinds of good stuff all around.
I wish that there had been classes when I was going through theory on hook theory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were those who were the experts on, writing the hit songs, but it's not like you could go to college for it.
Yep. Now, I don't remember if I had a free trial version or if it was a free version back then. I do see over here it's talking about buying now or try for free. So it's something that you could easily try for free for sure. Something that, again, just seeing how it works is enough to, you don't necessarily need the software to understand how it works and see what it's doing, but just seeing how it represents things.
What's their subscription cost? If it's as cheap as MuseScore, I actually subscribe to MuseScore. It's super useful for notation software. It's worth, the
Yeah,
four bucks a month.
it has it as $149 for a one-time done. It has it for
Oh, really?
$49 a year, or $5 a month.
Oh, fuck that. I just if I knew that I liked it and
Mhm.
wanted to keep using it,
It would be the one
I
time for me. Yeah,
I might try it for a couple of months at $5, but within 2, 3 months, I'll know if it's that's what I did with MuseScore.
yep,
I tried it for free for a good year, and eventually I was realizing like I'm really using it a lot, and the access to the MIDI files.
yeah,
Eventually, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay for it, and I just paid for a year subscription.
yep. And in this case, it would be $49 for a yearly subscription. But again, I would also be in the camp that would do the 149 one-time purchase and just be done with it and have it, because I would find it very useful. It is one they mentioned right at the top here. If you don't like it for any reason, you just reply to the email that you got it with and get a full refund. It doesn't say 30 days. It doesn't say a year. It just says if you want a refund, you just let them know and you get a refund. So
And
it
if you're a
doesn't sound.
student or an educator, it's possible that they might have a student discount. A lot of these sites will.
Sure. Yep. And it has resources up here as well. Video tutorials, user guides, keyboard shortcuts, all that kind of stuff. But like again, the stuff that I found most useful was, excuse me, the parts where we were going through the being able to basically Lego block out a song, just saying, like this part right here, where you're saying, okay, I've got the 1, I've got the 4, now what do I want to do? And you can just pull from a template that they have up there or the palette and just say, I want this, I want this. You can block in a melody line very easily too. Like you see them doing little dots right there. They're drawing a melody line in. And those melody lines are just based on the diatonic notes from that scale because that's what's on the little palette that they give you to choose from. It just makes it so easy to just draw stuff out and listen to it and see what it sounds like.
And it makes it easier to appreciate arrangement.
Hmm.
I think a lot of musicians ignore the arranging in songwriting. They
Hmm.
just, go riff it out, and they don't think about the arrangement of the parts.
If you see this melody guides right here, it's actually showing you where the important notes are for the changes. So like in the 1, they're highlighting the 5 up there for you, so you can see that there's the 1, there's the 5. When you go to the 4 chord, it's showing you the 4 chord and the 6 because the 6 would be in there, the note for the 6. So it's giving
Oh,
you guides of what notes would be good for that key change that you're in.
I love the idea of a melody guide.
Hmm.
That is cool.
And this would be a very simple melody where there's da 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 da, but you can also break those up in between and just know that that's your target where you're going. So you can go around that. You go above it, below it, and back up to it, things like that, to make a little interest around a note like that in any style. So it's got all the different choices. Professionally tuned bands, instruments, and rhythms. But also being able to create sheet music is good. So if you could draw it out, you can get it out in sheet music as well.
Tell you the musical tools we have these days, killed from 25 years ago.
You and me both. Drag and drop for MIDI, that's always good. Once you write it out, you drag it over there and then bring it into a DAW.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're not ignoring MIDI, with all this. I mean, obviously for them, MIDI is a big part of what allows them to be able to show you, like, drag and drop chords
Hmm.
real fast.
This last bit
But
over here too.
giving you the ability to utilize that MIDI afterwards, a lot of music software is clearly using MIDI, but they don't let you extract the MIDI for use afterwards.
Right,
It's
right.
like the drum looper, with BandLab.
I was thinking Easy Drummer or one of those where they
Oh
actually
yeah,
they do get MIDI out from those guys.
yeah. The Easy Drummer is very, MIDI centric.
I think the free one was it called MT Drummer. I think it was. That was the one
Yeah.
that I installed because that was essentially a free version that is similar to Easy Drummer in the way that it works.
Yeah, and it's very standard. Like it
Mhm.
uses standard MIDI drum loops.
Now this part right here also, just like Magic, talking about chord suggestions, and this is what I was saying. Like if you start, you see how he's got a little progression down there where he's doing a 6, a 5, then he's got looks like a 5 of the 4 or something, but then he's got this rainbow going on around this one, and that rainbow is where it's bringing up the chord suggestions, where it's saying, okay, what would you suggest I go to after doing these in the progression so far? So it knows what key you're in or what your movement is, chromatically, melodically, and it can say, oh, you can try this one, you can try this one, and it's got the ability to preview how all of these different ones sound. And there was another section that I don't know if it's still in there, but one that it used to have where as you're plotting out a chord progression, it'll tell you, these 400 songs all use that progression. And then as you put in the next chord, it's like, now it's down to 30 songs use that song, and then it shows you each of the other chords that you could potentially go to and how many songs or what percentage of songs, went there. So you can go to something that's really, odd and not used very much, but sounds cool, or you can go to something that all the songs did this one. 400 songs use this one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can pick kind of which way you're going to go with it, whether it's something more common or something more, less common to make it more
and
interesting.
there is nothing wrong with going with fan favorite progressions and approach. There's a reason why they are the popular ones. There's certain progressions and certain sounds that are always going to be pleasing to the audience.
Just like anything working with that 1, 6, 4, 5 that we just talked about, any combination of the 1, the 6, the 4, and the 5 is going to sound sweet. And sometimes it won't sound settled because you didn't pull it back to the 1. But that's why for me, any variation of that with the 1, the 5, the 6, and the 4, I want to end it with the 5 coming back to the 1, or end it with the 5 going to the 1 at the end. So like it could be 6, 4, 5, 1, which is kind of the same way as it was before, but you're landing on the 1 at the end, or have it start with the 1 and go like 1, 6, 4, 5, so that at the very end you're going from that 5 pulling back to the 1 for that nice hard landing, or solid landing. It all depends what you're trying to pull for.
Yeah, you're really doing something weird if you fuck up with that progression and it sounds bad, because it's such an easy progression to make sound good.
Yeah.
It practically does all the work for you. You just have to figure out your attack.
Exactly. That's a good one. So yeah, hook pad, hook theory. That is one that I recommend. I used it for a while there, and I definitely enjoyed it. Again, I don't remember if I think I just had a trial version at that point.
Another one with an AI.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yep, and that's what it's using for that chord suggestions. The AI gives you easy access to the most used chords, and it understands what you're going for because you fed it a beginning. So D major. We're starting with that, and it says, okay, we're in the key of D major. This is the palette of chords that you would normally use, and if you're kind of stretching for the ones that are barely in the key, that's this one, and this one, like the borrowed chords that you would go for. They won't necessarily give you things that are way outside the box, but they'll give you plenty of things that you might not have expected to work for that either.
Or you might not have thought of. Just like it says, overcoming creative ruts. A tool like this is a useful way to get out of a creative ditch.
Absolutely. And we got RJS is back again.
Hey, Kevin.
Absolutely. Hook pad, hook theory. That's the one we were looking at there. But it's got all kinds of good stuff that we can use from it and pull from it to figure out what we would do, whether it's on the keys or whether it's on the guitar.
Yeah, that is one I'm going to play with more.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. There were some that we were looking at there. For music, I think I had one that I was going to go to, but I wasn't sure if you had another one lined up as well.
What do you got?
I was thinking about a piano one, actually, but I'd have to dig for a little bit to go find it there. It's from last year, actually. It was my dad playing some piano.
Oh, is it some Chopin?
It's nice. It's some classical stuff that you would enjoy, I am sure. I just have to figure out how far back it is, because there have been a couple of songs we've done this past year, so I'm scrolling through to find it. But I think if I knew what I called it, it would be a lot easier. But I wasn't sure. Did you have any others lined up for music that you had set up, or did you want to go with this one?
No, I didn't have anything lined up.
Nice. We'll get there then. Another one that we could do is also there was one that we did with RJS that was a long track that we almost never put into shows because it's just too long. It's like, I can't remember if it was 13 minutes. Do you remember that one? The Budgies, Parents was the song. Mm-hmm. That was a cover that we did, but that one was like a 13-minute long song, so I'm not sure if we want to do that just now. But just scrolling through, there's a lot of songs out here. I remember the Orb Composer. That was one of the ones I just went past there. I remember we were using that one to compose different progressions, same kind of idea, different tools to try to get different, to get more help trying to get everything working with that.
I do have our Andrew Fine Wuru piece.
Nice.
Now that we've finished that up, hopefully you guys joined us yesterday for the World Peace Celebration.
Mm-hmm. It was good stuff.
And keep in mind, that's not just a one-day thing.
Mm-hmm.
World peace goes on every day.
And that's right. Gotta be peaceful, and do not promote hate. Hate has no place. I've never been a fan of hatred. Not that many people are, but some people, they just can't help themselves sometimes. And that's no good.
Here, while you're searching for that, cue this up.
Cool.
Oh, apparently I was still screen sharing from the other one.
Yeah. The good thing is that it can be, off screen with the restream and then bring it on in from over there. I like that.
I didn't even realize it because it was off screen.
Mm-hmm. Just like that. Get the little visualizers cooking.
There we go.
All right. I'm going to mute my mic just so I'm not coming through.
Hi, I'm Angify. I started Angify Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds. Let in the love.
And listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this giant world among us and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, and you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world for our children's futures at stake. We'll find, you'll find, oh, you'll find the world. You will find the world. Just open up your hearts, and you will find the world. And you'll find this trying world, heroes among us and every boy and girl, a better place for our children's sake. Oh, and you'll find, oh, you'll find the world.
Always good to hear.
Ah,
Always good to see, too.
I've heard it a million times and I still like it.
And that's the key.
That's a good sign.
Hmm. Don't have my camera up, do I? There it is. Better. Yeah.
And Kevin just reminded us tomorrow is the deadline for the Pop to Metal for anybody out there who's been cooking something up.
Nice.
You got about 24 hours left.
Pop to metal. Do it. Do it. Definitely some
Oh,
good stuff there.
Kevin Ange can sing about everything. I've heard her sing about chicken, shopping for chicken,
Yep.
and cheese,
And
cleaning
all
the
kinds of
house.
crazy stuff. Cleaning the house, yeah. That was always a good one. And to have like sometimes even at rehearsals when we were, getting together over at our friend's house over near her there, doing rehearsals and just throwing whatever. We're just playing something as a test or as a start, and she'll just start throwing out lyrics, and it's like, ah, nice, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, she got a gift for that.
Hmm. Most definitely. Now that one, I was hearing D major, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That
is G. Indeed.
Yeah, you got it.
And then it's just a matter of fancying it up. NyQuil and chicken? I mean, not really. I'm more of a shake and bake guy when it comes to the chicken. Delicious. NyQuil, not so much. Maybe Dayquil if I was going to work, but NyQuil never really needed that much. If I felt bad and it's time for sleep, I'll just sleep. But I get it. There are times where you can't sleep and you're feeling like it, so the NyQuil would be good, but not in the food, man.
Oh, no, don't put NyQuil on chicken. That's just wrong.
You got time to do both in their own time. There's efficiency, and then there's taking it a little too far.
Yeah, that D, which would be the 1.
Mm-hmm.
A, the 5. Back to the D. 1, 5, 4, 1. Now, cool. One thing I do there, the first one, I do in root position, but the second one, I do inverted. It resolves back.
Yep. With the F sharp on the bottom?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, no, with the A on the bottom. First inversion.
Cool. Because the F sharp on the bottom also kind of lands nice. Right in the middle of all
but
that.
It would be weird for me to...
Yeah.
Unless I
Did
start...
that fingering again.
Which would sound nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I play it that way, it
Yeah.
does feel like it's dropping down. So it would sound like this. That really does drop down. I'll have to try re-recording that with that approach, and it's going to sound different if I.
Nice.
It resolves differently with that F on the bottom there.
Exactly. The F sharp, yeah. But that's where each of the 3 inversions, knowing that there's those 3 different landings, like trying different ones, and depending where you start also, of course. But starting with the root position is always nice because that way you're getting a good solid foundation. You've got that, the root notes on the bottom. It knows, it feels like the right chord. And then as you're moving to the end of it, like ending with the higher one or ending with a lower one, you can use the different inversions at the end more easily to make it sound like you landed somewhere different, even though it is essentially the same place, but it gets you that movement feeling.
Starting with the root on the D, the 5th became the melody. The A is where the melody is.
Yep.
started with the other inversions, my melody would be on my thumb. Which my thumb is not good for leads.
Yeah, for Tony, he's got a visualizer going there so that when he's holding the keys down, you can see him. I usually had one too called Meticulous, which also shows the staff of what I'm playing. Next time I'll have that hooked up, and we can check that out. Today I was going to do some more guitar instead, but then we got more talking on theory side, which is just fine as well.
Yeah, I had my Meticulous set up before the show, but that computer needs a little more massaging in order to get into the restring. Next week.
Yeah. But that's okay. Now, we do have...
I got fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
and it helps me see what you're doing.
I don't want to get rid of the fireworks. Unfortunately, on the music machine, I can't run Meticulous and Keynote at the same time. Keynote really wants the MIDI, and if anything else steps on the MIDI, then Keynote complains.
Then how about I give you fireworks over here?
That's what I was feeling.
Nice.
Your fractals.
Getting it to the big screen. Do it that way or that way. I like that.
Oh, I'd love a program that can do that kind of imagery to the music.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely some good visualizers out there, and I'll start looking into some, because with the graphics card I have, we should have no trouble getting some good visualizations going.
Well, I have some that I can put my music into, and it'll generate, patterns like that. But I have yet to find one that can do it in real time.
Yeah, and I had a couple even that I built in with the OBS. I mean, I was starting to get a couple for OBS, and I forget even if I had it. Apologies if these are not set up as well, but I think I had one that had some other visualizers available. This one, where we had some of... No. One was just being able to do the full screen with the visualizer. And that was just...
Yeah, Kevin, if you like those MIDI visualizers, the one that I'm using, it's called Keynote. Yeah, you actually have to get it through Steam, because it's utilizing the Unreal game engine, but it makes... I tried 3 of them before I finally settled on this one, and I'm glad that the other one was overpriced. Otherwise, I probably would have stuck with it. I ended up searching for Keynote because I was not going to start paying $100 a year for my piano visuals. Keynote is like $20, and it's a one-time purchase and not a monthly subscription. And it has way better visuals. It has better options. I've got my keys programmed, so when I hit certain keys, you'll notice the visuals start to change because I'm hitting different keys, which triggers different particles. So
now the
see how the patterns are changing every time I hit that D? It comes back with a whole different effect.
Nice. Because you have it set to, as a trigger note down there. Nice.
Yeah, I basically programmed the bottom, everything from C2 down. Anytime I'm using my bass hand, it's triggering it to change.
Nice.
So each one of those, as I change notes, is changing the particles to a different kind of pattern.
Now for this one, this is what Meticulous looks like. I don't have it. It's not actually reading from my keyboard right now. But normally if I were playing like a C major scale, it would not only light up the notes on the actual keyboard down here, but it would also show on the staff what a C major chord would look like in sheet music and tell you at the top what what it is, what scale you're playing in. The actual interface for it, I have on the other screen there actually.
Yeah, the
maybe.
Manipulous interface is pretty straightforward, not complex, and it's perfect for learning. It's perfect for teachers.
There it is. So basically, you can select what instrument it's set for. Like right now, it's set for an acoustic grand piano. I had the volume off just because it wasn't reading. But if I hit notes, I'm not sure how loud that is. It sounded pretty loud here, so bring it down some.
Doesn't sound loud here at all.
But I can play just by clicking with the mouse is what I'm doing there. And you can change the sounds. They have a bunch of different instruments built right in.
Mousing it, huh?
Yep. Because it's actually, it's not reading my keyboard. My keyboard is just going in through the audio interface. But if I were playing here, you can see it on the tab over there that it shows up what note I'm hitting. I can't really hit more than one note with the mouse, but if I were, you'd be able to see what's going on. You hit the pedals too if you wanted to sustain or sostenuto, whichever pedal you wanted to use there. You can change what key it's displaying on the staff there. Right now it's C major, so there's no sharps or flats. But if I went to G flat major, you got 6 flats, so it gets all ugly.
And this is where I'm trying to learn how to sight read faster. Mm-hmm. This is really helping me to see the notes in relation to the staff in a way that is just speeding up that process for me.
And in this case, for example, if I hit the G flat and we're in the key of G flat, you'll see that it doesn't show the flat on the actual note that I'm hitting because you see that it's in the key signature, which is on that whole batch of flats to the left there. Anything that's on any of those spots is going to be flatted. And if you try to hit one that's not, or you hit a wrong note, you'll see that natural symbol saying that, hey, you're hitting the wrong note that's supposed to be flatted, and it's going natural instead.
Yeah, it's like having a piano teacher with a ruler ready to snap your
whack.
hand. Don't play that.
Not that one. Yep, exactly.
And if piano is not your thing, you go under the views there, and you can actually show guitar tab, bass tab.
Mm-hmm. Under the instruments there, you can show different settings there.
A whole bunch of different choices.
Yep, vector keys, MIDI organ, guitars, bass. If I say 5-string bass, it'll show us the.
Yeah. Again, for a learning tool, for a teacher teaching a student online, this is the go-to software.
And in this case, it's actually saying, it's telling you which one you're hitting. So like C3, A2, so you know where you are, which octave, as far as the MIDI notes would be concerned. But it's pretty cool. I almost always kept it in keyboard mode, just because I'm usually playing keyboard. But again, if it's not reading my keyboard right now, then it's not.
Is that flipped? Would that be a left-handed player the way I'm looking at it, or a right-handed player?
This would be the way I would be seeing it. Like basically, if I'm sitting down and I rock the bass up towards me, the frets that are further apart are out towards the headstock, and the frets that are close together are up near the body.
Yeah.
So this would be the way I'd be playing it. So my left hand is out towards the wider out frets, and the plucking hand is in with the on the body with the closer together frets. So the lowest notes should be down here, and the highest going all the way up to there. And in this case, you can see where the double frets, or the double dot, is the 12th fret, so that's the octave. You see that we have dots at the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, the 12, and then these are basically the octave of the 3, the 5, and the 7, which are the 15, the 17, and the 19, and then this is the 20th fret. So that's basically the same exact way my 5-string is set up. It's got 20 frets. The one 5-string that we have at the studio over at Joey's house has 5 strings and 24 frets. So it actually has an additional 4 frets beyond mine. So there's additional stuff close together, another 4 frets up there to get to the double octave, which is cool. So that you can get to that, not just the open G and this G, but another G above that. Now, a 5-string can also have a high string instead of a low string. In this case, it's a low B string going up to a high G string. You can also have it go from a low E string, which is not as low as the low B string, up to a high C string if you wanted to get really, really high notes with a 5-string. But for me, the whole purpose of the 5-string is the low B.
On a 5-string, it goes to B at the bottom?
B at the bottom. Yep, B is that low string at the bottom, and that way we can drop an additional 5 notes below that E string, or that low E that normally would be like if you have a 4-string bass, your lowest note is usually an E, and then we can go with those additional 5 frets below that to get to that low B. So anybody who tunes down to drop D or drop C or drop B, like any of those kind of keys, we can get down to those root notes without having to change our tuning at all.
That's why all those metal bassists are using 5 strings these days, huh?
Or 6
All
strings
the
for that matter.
guitarists, yeah, the 6 string is also, I'm seeing more of those.
Mm-hmm. Now, MIDI drums, that's also fun because then it gives you an actual drum kit.
Oh, they finally incorporated drums into it. Awesome.
Yep. And again, that's one of those where you can change the pitch, you can change the speed, and you can try to. You can see it over here on the sheet music also. I didn't realize that, but you see what note that is.
Think about it. If you actually had a MIDI drum kit and you're triggering this, again, for students and teachers,
Mm-hmm.
this stuff is...
It's fun to play with. Good instruments. What about vector keys?
And I actually considered buying it today. The pricing on it is really fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the free, it gives you everything you need. The free version is great. You might not even feel like you need the pro version, but the pro version does add some extra features as far as extra visual adjustments and the ability to like bring in audio files, so that if you are a teacher and you want to be able to load MIDI or audio files for the student and show them with staff and notation, those kinds of features come in handy.
Definitely. And again, just like you mentioned, like when we were just messing around, like if I'm hitting notes and you can see what I'm doing with Meticulous, you're not only seeing the sheet music, but you're seeing on the actual keyboard which notes I'm hitting. So it gives you multiple ways of hammering those things home. It helps with the sheet music reading. It helps with recognizing what you're hearing, putting it together with what you're seeing.
It helps
I like
me to
that.
know what Glenn is playing.
And that helps me too. Sometimes I need to know what Glenn's playing. Because it's not always obvious.
Oh, hell, sometimes I'm asking you what I'm playing.
I've been known to do that, yep. And you can become wall with that. Transpose the synth into guitar, yeah.
It's that.
You just go like,
You got eagle ears and eagle eyes.
Yep. The eagle eyes, I kind of cheat a little bit because I use a big screen. But the ears definitely are working.
You know, that would make a good discussion one night. Tricks and skills to improve your pitch recognition. That's another one that I've struggled with for over 30 years.
Ear training, absolutely.
Ear training is something that hasn't totally clicked for me.
As a matter of fact,
it's gotten better in the last couple of years, but it's never totally clicked.
One of the videos that I actually have loaded up, might not be right now, it might be one of the ones that's just on here. I think I saw it on my YouTube feed earlier about like triads are a good one. These are just different ones to, for ideas of what helps, like circle of fifths over here, songs that use those progressions, how to do melodies, which things are good and which are not. But I'm just looking for one of the ones that we talked about there. Circle of fifths, lush chords. Over here, learn 4 chords, play hundreds of songs. This is the one that we were just talking about with the one versions of the 1, 6, 4, 5.
Do you see that little piano hat? Hell yes, I want one.
Sign me up. I like it.
That's my baseball team.
Diminished scale shred. Memorizing the minor scales. There's a bunch of them, but certain ones were about things that help you learn, do's and don'ts for elegant chord voicings, jazz standards, chords for C major. I mean, just so many of these. I'm trying to find, as I start looking through, I forget what I was looking for in the first place, but like learn 4 chords, play hundreds of songs. There's a few of them that are just like that. Thank you. Ear training, yeah. So there was actually a one about songs and recognizing intervals based on songs. So like here's some chord progressions and why they work. Like they explain what it actually means. But in the one I was looking for, it has like little thumbnails of like
actually, now that
Yoda.
You explained to me once how you could find the key that somebody was playing in just within a couple of notes.
So this
how
is
you would hit a couple of notes as somebody was playing something, and you could narrow in on the key
Yep.
just by shifting up a little bit or shifting down a little bit till you found one of the notes.
Yep, looking for the root note. Exactly. Yeah. When I hear something going around, like even when we're listening to As You Find there, if you can find what note feels like it's going to work, like I'll try that A, I'll try the D, just again, finding a note that works and then feeling around that note to see where, and again, if I can find the two major chords that are next to each other or the two minor chords that are next to each other, that'll tell me that's the 2 and the 3 or the 4 and the 5, or, so I can know that that's where we are relative to that home key and then build from there in terms of what we're looking at. Here's the one I was looking at though. It's a David Bennett piano. So it's the same guy that we looked at earlier for the diminished triads or the diminished songs that use the diminished key. And this one is songs to recognize different chord types by ear. So it's got like the major or the minor major ninth, and it's got James Bond or it's a suspended chord.
Once I get past recognizing one note, I would love to be able to like hear chords on the fly and know them.
Exactly. And this is where like you might not necessarily know that it's a B minor major ninth, but you'll recognize that it's a minor major ninth because you can hear that interval in there.
As long as I can get into the ballpark of like it's a B.
Yeah, exactly.
B minor, and then from there, I hear an extra note in there. Oh, there's a 7th or a 9th.
Yep, exactly. And so that was one of them, but there was another video that was just like that, but it had like the Star Wars theme or like Happy Birthday, because there's certain songs that would help with individual notes, right? Or like individual.
What is Happy Birthday?
I'm thinking C, D, and then F, E. F, E. Yeah, and then G, F.
I got the first one.
Because that's just G, F instead of F, E.
And then what is it, just slide up?
Yep. G, F. Still the same C and D at the beginning. And that's C, A, F, E. Yep. All the way to the C. C, A, F. F, E, C, or F, E, D. And then it goes to a B flat A. B flat A, F, G, F. Exactly.
Go to the B flat.
To the B flat. I mean, it's in the song, so you got to do something.
Why you gotta be that way?
It's probably in the key of F, and that's why the B flat's in there. But we started up from that C, so we're starting from the 5 of F. If we looked at it that way. But yeah, just being able to recognize songs like that was one of them. Here Comes the Bride would be another one. You're going from the 1 to the 4. I was doing a G, E, F.
Oh,
kind of surrounding it, yep. Not even sure. Probably F, A.
It's a fun melody. That's a fun one to learn.
With the C, the A, and the F there.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
That was the other one I was thinking about, yeah. And those are the things. It's like simple melodies like that, or any songs that you can identify. Okay, here's a 1, here's a 5, or here's a 1, here's a 4. Like when you can start recognizing those progressions. And again, that 1, 6, 4, 5, any variation of that, like I can hear that coming and I'll be like, oh yeah, as soon as I hear that, I already know as soon as I can find any note that works, I can find my way right into the whole rest of the song because it's all built around that same structure.
Yeah. Learning songs like that this way is helping me to hear interval recognition, which is the other half of my challenge. Picking up pitch, picking up interval jumps, the sound of a 1-3 versus a 1-4. Not in chord, but just single note. I gotta really burn the sound of the interval into my ears across every scale.
Exactly. And that's the thing is playing in
like double flatted E.
Well, the other thing that was cool about all of that, especially, was the fact that when we did go through a bunch of this, realized that we were at the flat side, right, which is the side that you don't normally look at here. But if you look at the keys that we did C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, and we did the G flat, which is the very bottom. We only skipped one. So, I mean, you literally did all of what would be your hardest chords or all your hardest scales. So getting them under your fingers is just a matter of, working through them a little bit.
The F and the B flat, I guess I've been a little more familiar with. The A flat, though,
that was the most difficult because that one had the, it's not all the black notes, and it's not as, as simplistic as the B flat or the F were, as only having 1 or 2 flats. So it's in the middle. You got to know which ones to go up for and which ones not to go up for, and that does make it tricky. But once you do get the feel for it, it's good. And again, once you get these 12, there's only 12. Once you get these 12 major chords down under your fingers, and as you go through them, like when you sit down to practice, that's one thing where you were talking about scales before, and whether it's if it's the G scale, I'll always do like once up and down, and then the arpeggio to get the full scale or the full chord, like the root 3/5, and then the root on top. And then if I'm doing, just going around that circle of fifths, that way helps because you're starting, C, we all know that was G, then you go to the D. Yay. So just working your way around like that. And it's just one of those things that as you get more comfortable with going through them all and doing that as a little practice exercise, that doesn't take too long, but you can hear them as it's going, and you work out those little intricacies of the fingering, whether it's starting with the index finger or starting with the thumb, or which ones feel awkward. But you can work that out. And that's just doing 1 octave. What we used to do from when I had piano lessons, we would start doing it with 2 hands, and we would eventually do 4 octaves, where you start at the bottom, you go up 2 octaves, and then you start the hands going out, so that the left hand's going down again for 2 octaves, and the right hand's going up for 2 more octaves, and then back in, and then up, and then down, and out, and in, and back down again. So you end up really working through all of those transitions multiple times. Because if you're doing both hands at the same time, that's the other thing. Those little thumb transitions happen at different times. So even in the key of C, if you started just trying to play an octave apart, that like after you do 3 notes, after you get that,
going to Disney, Glenn.
yeah. Once you get that in the right hand, you do 3 notes, and then you're tucking that thumb under, and in the left hand, you're going 5 notes, and then you're tucking the middle finger over. And so it's like once you get used to that, it's like 1, 2, 3, tuck 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2. Once you get into a pattern and you recognize where those transitions happen for each key, then it gets more comfortable. But still, getting comfortable with what key you're actually playing in is important, and understanding what chords are there and which are the no notes and which are the go-to notes is important stuff. Yeah, there's gonna be some assholes in there for sure.
Well, I'll tell you 2 things that kind of clicked in tonight for me that were real useful was becoming aware of where I'm playing on the actual key itself and why certain scales have always been clunky for me is that my hands I'm playing too high up on the
too far up
keyboard,
in the black notes there, yeah.
And I'm dealing with skinny white notes that are cut off up there, and my fingers are hitting notes on the side. And
like again, being all the way up there
was
instead of way out here.
Using something other than my thumb as the root in any chord I'm playing.
Yes,
I
yes.
hadn't thought about doing my scales starting with the pointy finger.
That's a
really
big one.
Was a epiphany for me.
Nice. And that is one, again, where, again, for me, it's comfortable to do a chord like that with the index and the ring finger doing the outside notes. And again, most people wouldn't find that comfortable, but you could get away with the pinky.
It's always been habit for me, like since the beginning piano lessons was, thumb being one,
Yep.
on C, and then
You get used to it for sure.
rolling the thumb under for the 4, 5, you got all 5 fingers to go back and forth, and then 1, 2, 3, thumb, pointy, middle has always been my 1, 2, 3, but not all scales lend themselves to that mentality. That B flat.
That messed you up, yeah.
Yeah, see, it's still messing me up when I try to do it with the thumb, but when I do it with
Yep.
it really is opening my fingers up, utilizing that for that scale. I gotta figure out which scales that's a better approach and start mastering those scales. So when Glenn says, "We're gonna play
Let's do this.
B flat,"
Let's see how much of an asshole he's going to be tonight. All right, tonight's going to be D flat.
I'm drinking milk.
Getting strong. But that is where it comes in handy, though, being able to play in those. And again, realize that just tonight we've gone through so many of those different keys, and there's only 12. So as we get those 12 locked in, and we know C, we know A minor. We're going to stay away from the minors for right now, but if we just focus on some of those majors to get the feeling of those scales, like you said, which ones need to start with the thumb, which ones don't need to, which ones are more comfortable to do different ways, for the major chord, just building a major chord out of it. If you're doing the A flat, it's another one the same way where you got the top or the outside notes or black notes and the middle one's a white note.
Hold forms with each movement on the keys. What do you mean, Kevin?
Like holding the claw, kind of.
Hold the claw as you're moving, so
See, that depends. If we're doing to me, it's more like if you're doing a 1-4-5, doing a 1-4-5 and keeping the root on the bottom. In that case, we're just moving the whole claw, and so you can keep those same 3 fingers in the same position, but you're just moving it to each of those from the 1 to the 4 to the 5. But instead, you would normally, if you do that first inversion for the C chord, you're starting with the E on the bottom, the E, G, C, and then going up to the F and then the G. It makes it sound like just another way of doing it by throwing the inversions in.
sounds nicer with that inversion. With the E's on the bottom for the C.
Yep. You can also start it with the G on the bottom, and it sounds more like a back and forth with the G on the bottom doing the.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And so in that case, like if you're playing all the chords in C major, for example, you're using the same claw to get C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B half diminished, or B minor 7, or B flat 5, back to the C. And that's all just doing a 1-3-5 of white notes all the way up. So that's where in keyboard, that's the similar thing to in guitar, using a claw and just sliding up and down, like slide up a fret, and you get the same type of chord, just in a different key. So you're going from E to F just by sliding that same shape up 1 fret. Whereas on the piano, you're going from a C major to a D minor by using the same shape 1 note higher, just because of the different relation to the notes, because of how F and E are right next to each other, B and C are right next to each other, but everybody else has space.
I blew up my particle engine playing that one.
Ba-boom.
Blew its load.
Well, then that's probably a good time for us to play a song. How about that? I'll play that song that I found. I did dig through and found the song of my dad playing piano. It looks like from the WAV file, it looks like it's actually clipped a little bit in the middle, so it might be a little bit loud. I think this was me recording it on my phone from it playing in the room, so it's a little bit echoey. But let me see if I think I have that here. And this was last August, I believe.
I heard DM
Yeah.
that to at Angify, and we'll check it out for a future show. We're not taking any links tonight.
Yep. And using 3 forms of positions for lead guitar. Yep. Just different claw shapes. Yeah, basically that's another thing is using that movable E shape from the Cage system. That's the same claw that you would use for the minor chords on the fifth string as opposed to the 6th string. So you can use a major claw and then same claw moved 1 string down becomes a minor chord. Things like that are kind of cool too, where you can get that same position in a different place, gives you a different chord, much like with the piano, going from that C major to the D minor, same claw, 1 spot over, gives you a different chord flavor, just because of the way it's set up there.
Oh, you're showing us your privates, huh?
Let's see here. I believe I am.
Nobody can get to this one.
Nobody. Yeah, this one was not released, I don't believe, but that's okay. So let me see how loud it is.
I got a private collection too.
Yep. Let me know if this is at a good volume. Takes a second to kick.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh, Kevin caught the part that I love the most too. Trill it.
Yep, yep. Love the trills. And no, that's
Yeah, it was
not
very
an original piece.
splashy. Very
Not an original piece.
splashy.
That is a classical piece, a famous one. And again, I always forget the title of it. I recognize them all by ear because they're songs that my dad played since I was very little. He played all these songs, so like I'll hear classical, especially Chopin, but so many different types of classical piano specific songs that I'll hear, and it's definitely like oh, I recognize that from from when I was 3 years old or whatever.
Oh, and we definitely got to do a classical night.
Yeah.
That's that's where I started with music.
Hmm.
Some of my most favorite.
Absolutely.
I I really want to be able to play that combination of low with a little bit of high that was dancing around on the high side.
Right, right.
That is a technique in piano that I've been searching forever for.
Hmm.
I can play on one side or the other, but I don't on the high side.
It's tricky, and that's where the hand
That's a
coordination.
it's where you can't mess up a lot because if you do it, you really hear it. But
Hmm.
you do have some flexibility when you're soloing. That's when you can do those like modal shifts and hit the weird notes, and they don't sound weird.
Yep. And that's the bonus when you can play the weird stuff and not have it sound weird.
Yeah, well, you're rolling
It
them
sounds like it
like
fits. Yep.
you're rolling up and down. The left hand's really like keeping the chords. It's the rhythm guitar in the
Yeah, yeah.
combo.
Yep. And that's where it becomes so difficult. Just like with drummers, thinking about how you got to get four limbs going at the same time or whatever, or have at least three different, completely different patterns going at the same time. With the keyboard, you get the same split where if your left hand is trying to do chords and your right hand is trying to do melody or vice versa, you end up with, it can be very tricky with the timing. One thing I would suggest is ragtime. Ragtime piano is one of those that really helps with that syncopation to get yourself off or to get yourself able to play things on off tempos.
Much agreed. That is a genre that, again, back at the beginning, I was like, I want to learn this, I want to learn this, I want to learn that. That's a hard one though to feel. Like
Oh yeah.
just like blues. I love blues. I don't feel blues when I play. Like I started with classical music, so trying to find my blues, classical doesn't really lend itself to blues mentality a lot of times.
Yeah, and that's where I think it was Maple Leaf Rag was one of the ones that we did that was a ragtime timing piece that we really liked. I'll take a look at it because that's one I'll probably start looking more at. Again, I have an entire bin of sheet music that I pulled up from Dad's house. So I have books. I mean, literally,
Well,
I don't
see,
know,
th-
3 feet thick of piano and sheet music.
that's where my Muse Score subscription comes in handy because if you scan those, I will turn those into MIDI for you.
Yep, and it probably does remind you of Chopin because my dad is was a
Yeah.
huge fan of Chopin. I mean, he has a picture that's 4 feet by 3 feet of Chopin's like face that was hanging right over the piano.
It reminded me
and
of
that was his
Chopin
major
too.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Although
Very much.
compared to other Chopin works, that was kind of less flashy than like some of his stuff. He was a flashy composer.
I definitely recognize it. I've heard it even on one of the CDs that I have somewhere of classical where it's, I had the song titles there, but I just totally forgot which one it was. So I just have it listed as Dad Salviano. That's actually the name of the piano. The Casio Salviano is the AP21. That's the real touch piano that we got for him, and that's the one that I have here now. But it's the one that I only use occasionally because I don't have the same hookups. Like I don't have the ability to take the sound out the same way, or I have to have it playing in the room in order to have the volume at the same level that I want. So that's why I'm using this other keyboard here. But I do have the real feeling piano right here as well to work on.
He must have loved getting a real touch keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
The first weighted keyboard I got, I I didn't really want to be a keyboardist, a synthesist. I wanted to play piano, and I had a baby grand to write on for 25 years. The only thing that eventually got me comfortable with synth was 88 weighted keys. 1993, I got a loan out like a car, except I went and bought a keyboard.
Nice. That's the way to do it. And actually, it's probably 84 or right about that time, when I got the Casio CZ1. We talked about that. I had the one big Casio CZ1 and a PV amp that I got with it. And at that point, that was, I mean, I had been doing piano before that because, like you said, we had baby grands also, and it was always like playing. At one point, we had the a Steinway in the corner there, and we're playing on that. And it had such a good sound. Yeah, it was a really nice sound. And at one point, before we got that one, we were playing on, I don't remember what the other brand was, whether it was a Yamaha or some other kind of, it was also a baby grand, but we had that one at first. And then when they got the Steinway, at one point, they were both in the same room for a short time. So like one in that corner and one in that corner.
Well, see, the Yamaha had a great feel, but the Steinway is a Steinway, and its sound is unmatched in the piano world.
Yep. And the one thing that we did have to do, that was the one that actually I got my experience doing piano tuning with, not tuning the whole thing necessarily, but there was one note that would occasionally go out. And it's like, let's say it's one of the lower, I'm going to say it's like one of the A's down below, like an octave below middle C. So it wasn't one that you always hit, but if you're playing a piece and you hit one note that's sour, it's always annoying.
Yeah, I had the same problem with my baby grand because I would always pound the A on the bottom side bass because I play an A minor. I wore the shit out of that string.
And in this case, what it was is it already had the largest tuning pegs because with the pianos, they use the tuning pegs are in there, and if you're using or if the pegs are starting to slip, or if one of the notes keep going out, it's usually the peg starting to slip a little bit. So you need to get a larger peg to put in there to use the same block. Well, these were already oversized pegs. They were always already the largest pegs you can use essentially. And it was still loose, so it would still go down. So I just kept the tuning hammer sitting there, and before I would start playing, I would just reach in and just, if you use the tuning hammer and there's 3 strings for that note, it's like ding ding darn, ding ding darn, and you're like, okay, and you just tune that up like tuning a guitar, tune it back up, and then you're good to go, and you go from there. So I never had a problem with tuning like that. I never sat down and tried to tune an entire piano because it stayed in tune beautifully.
Man.
Just that one note was pissing me off.
If you can tune an entire piano, you can make a living because there's not a lot of people who do and can, and they get paid.
It's really just patience. It's really patience because if you have tuning a fork, for example, for each note, if you have an actual tuning fork, you hit that note and it's by your ear, and then you press the note and you see if it sounds that way. Or again, with a piano, usually there's at least 2 or 3 strings making each note, except for the very lowest strings that are only one. The very lowest notes, I should say.
The grands, I mean, if you're tuning grand pianos, whoa, you better get top dollar.
Yep. And I've seen some videos that just looked cruel on YouTube where it was like, I hired somebody to tune my piano, and they go inside and all the hammers were replaced with actual hardware store hammers. And the person opens the piano and they're like, what? And I'm like, that's just mean. You can get someone over there for that. Mean stuff.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of endurance to go tuning all those keys.
Well, think about the 88 keys, and most of them have 3 strings or 2 strings, and the very lowest ones only have 1 string. But think about how many strings that is. And again, you might not have to tune all of them, but you do have to check all of them. And, in sometimes what will happen is instead of tuning the whole thing, like if a piano is partially out of tune, but it's all similarly out of tune, like with a guitar, like the whole thing is a half a tone flat, then it's like, somebody might, instead of tuning everything back to get it all where it should be, they might just listen to it and say, okay, well, if we just change this note and this note, relative tuning.
Yeah.
But that is horrible.
That's no fun if that piano's being used with other musicians.
That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that it's getting the wrong sound in people's ear. Like if somebody's trying to learn by ear and it's literally halfway between a C and a D, if they're trying to do ear training in school and somebody hits a D, they're like, C sharp, or like they think it's halfway in the middle because.
And even if it's relatively tuned, it is the difference between playing something in C major or playing something in D major.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These 2 major keys, you can play the exact same thing. They're going to have a different flavor.
Yep. And that's one of the things about guitar also is taking any song that you have, you can just slide up a fret or down a fret and play the same patterns, and you'll see what it sounds like in a different key. With piano, you got to deal with all the black note shifting. If you're going from this key to this key, and all of a sudden you're going from 3 black notes to 4 black notes or whatever, you're changing your hand grip for the very least and the fingering that you're using.
Yeah, guitarists are lucky. Like, you guys do have good perception of how a progression sounds in different keys because it's so easy for you guys to slide up and down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And with the 5-string bass, same thing. I can get down below that E, so I don't even have to change when it gets to, on a 4-string bass, trying to play in D, for example, rather than playing all the way low, you ran out of notes because you only got down to E at the lowest string. So you're usually playing rooted at the 5th string on the 2nd fattest string. So you're already, 5th fret on the 2nd fattest string. So you're already partway up the neck and you're already 1 string not in use. So you're only using those 3 strings from the 5th string up. So it's like you kind of ran out of room. Whereas on my 5-string, I can just start at the 3rd fret on that low B string, and now I got everything. I got the whole neck that I can get to and use from there and still be in the right position and in the right key to be able to reach everything.
Have you ever written a progression where you felt like you weren't in the key that you wanted to be for that progression, and then
Yes.
searched between the keys till you found the right one for that?
And it didn't take long. Yeah, it was just sliding down a fret at a time. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, yeah. And there might have been even one that sounded better somewhere further down the line. But as soon as I shifted down, like whether it was 3 or 4 frets from where I started, all of a sudden it sounded the way I wanted it to. So yeah, exactly.
So
It was.
you actually slide a little bit up or a little bit down till you find exactly the spot you want. Me, I tend to go to my go-to keys. So if I try a progression and it doesn't feel right in this key, I go to, the 2 or 3 other equivalent keys that I'm comfortable with, like C, G, D major, A major. Those would be my like 4 major go-tos.
Sure. And there's a good reason for that, because if you look at that circle of fifths, C, G, D, those are the top 3 over there for the 0, 1, and 2 sharps. A is getting you 3 sharps. If you go around the other side, you're getting that F, you're getting the 1 flat. B flat, you're getting the 2 flats. So, working from that side and kind of stretching your way around the circle like that definitely helps.
And generally, the mood that I'm looking for that opening chord, that first, if I'm starting with the root, like the sound of the C, is it giving me the kind of mood that I'm trying to use for the song, the progression that I'm about to do? And C or G or A major by themselves have a different mood just coming out the gate.
Absolutely. And again, whether it's just because of where you're starting or just because the little bit higher or a little bit lower might sound a little bit happier, a little bit more sad, depending on which notes are in there that weren't in the original thing that you thought of. But just taking that CFG example.
I'll do that too. I'll try it like, at this octave and then try it at the octave higher with the same chord. Just to see if it's brighter or if that's what
muddier,
I'm looking for. Yeah.
And again, same thing with inversions. You can invert the chords and it's like, it sounds totally different if I have that F sharp on the bottom. That's a D chord that's inverted, so now it sounds very different than when this one sounds more resolved. That sounds more like it's going somewhere. I like that though.
Yeah, that will make a good topic for one night. Starting points on writing a new song, whether it's the key inversion or the instrument choice. We start with the guitar, or we start with the drums.
Yep. And in this case, I had the guitar. I did like I said, I restrung it earlier today, so it's probably needs a little tuning before I play it up some more. But I was going to go with that other progression that I was talking about earlier. It felt like, I think I said it was a 6-2-5-1 or no, 2-6-5-1. So I was thinking like, so going from like a D minor to an A minor to a G major to a C. In that case, it's an inverted C with the E on the bottom. It just sounds like it kind of falls together or floats kind of where it wants to nicely.
And it resolves like it should be played on Sunday by Bach in church.
And that's one of those by essentially going around the circle of fifths, or starting to. You're just working on wherever you were going from there. All the way down.
It's funny how those little octave bounces can really sound glorious in both directions.
Sounds a lot fancier than it is. Yeah. Most definitely.
Well, the ear hears big jumps. When you hear a note like shift down like a whole octave, the ear recognizes that that is more difficult than coming down a half step. It produces a different effect to the listener.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where sometimes we haven't even like looked at all like augmented chords. Because they sound very weird. Because that's the
Yeah,
sharp
I know.
five.
We've been so focused on the diminished.
It is more. It is used a lot more often than the augmented. Augmented isn't as common.
Yeah.
And
Well,
for good reason.
It's just like you're noticing more minor. Like people are playing darker, moodier things these days, and diminished is more of a darker sound, right? When it comes to dissonance. Oh, tell me that's not cinematic. Like you could write Looney Tune cartoons around that all day.
Oh yeah. And the other thing is that's just hitting them as chords and just flopping the lowest note to the highest. But if you break those chords,
yeah, spooky.
and you got to hit the right notes though.
Oh, and it's even more effective when you do it that way with the chords than just like hitting each chord.
Exactly.
Those are like impactful. Like the person's getting stabbed, but when you're sliding up and down like that with arpeggiating the chords, it's like tension. It's like I'm running away. I'm running away. The way you attack that chord progression is the difference between like a impactful moment or a fleeting effect.
And very spooky. Yes, that is my favorite little spooky thing is that diminished run for sure. And you don't usually catch it in there a lot. I mean, like if you took a regular C major, like C145, you could use the B diminished in there.
It's funny. It's funny how it takes that pretty chord and just totally like puts it in a blender.
And says, "Oh, you like that? Huh? Oh no!"
But it gives it a. It's like spinning around the resonance.
Everybody's favorite A minor 7. The C major 7 with that B always. With that extra little thing at the top there. That's where we'll get into 7 chords as well more because I mean there's a lot to go over there, but at the same time you really most of the time you're just dealing with the major 7, the minor 7, or the dominant 7. So like if you're doing the C major, like we just said, if you're going the same thing that we did before, all the chords in C major, but we talk about with the 7s, with C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7. The G is a dominant 7, and that's where you get that flat instead of that F sharp. You're getting
the G owns.
Yep. Then the A minor 7. And then the B half diminished because we're doing B, D, F, and A instead of that A flat. So that's the diminished, half diminished.
That's a pretty sharp one.
Mm-hmm. Because if it was diminished, fully diminished, it would have the A flat. But when you change that to that A, it doesn't sound right when you do it right after it, but when you're doing them in order. So that's just going up through the, stacking them and going up through the diatonic chords. Always fun. Figuring out what the palette of chords you're going to use for a particular song is.
And the one thing that never changes when you're saying like these different chords in any key is the interval difference between the notes.
Yep. And that's why it's the same claw on guitar when you're going from here to here to here, because it's the same distance between this fret and this fret and this fret and this string and that fret. So the octave is always going to be from that low fat strings, the octave's always going to be 2 strings down and 2 frets over as long as you're in standard tuning. If you're in drop tuning, it's going to be just straight 2 strings down.
That's the math of music. Like musical math is pretty well structured.
Yep. And even working out all the diatonic notes just from the 1, 4, and 5. If you look at the 1, 4, and 5 chord, the 1's got the 1, 3, 5, the 4's got the 4, 6, 8, and the 5's got the 5, 7, 9, which gets you every note for the diatonic scale.
Oh, Uncle Dick in the house.
Hey.
Good to
What's
see
up,
you,
Unc?
Dick.
Haven't seen you in a while.
A while.
A while. But now he's back.
Have you ever looked at those other tunings or musical notation where it's more than 12? Aren't some of the like Mid-Eastern or
Yep.
like
They use actually, instead of 12 notes to get for an octave, they use 24. So they're actually putting
24, so they double
they're putting
it.
an extra note in between every note.
They cut everything in half.
Semitones, yep, are in between each.
That's something I would like to explore at some point.
What's fun with that is that's good with the fretless bass, because with the fretless bass, you're not tied in to there's a fret here, there's a fret here, and there's a fret here. You can play stuff microtonally, where you're in between the tones, in between the pitches. You can do that with a fretless bass. So you can play Eastern music with a fretless bass much more easily than you could with a fretted bass.
So now, if I want to do that with a keyboard, I've got to utilize the mod wheel or the pitch wheel in some way to get that note between the notes.
Either that, or my thought is, I mean, I don't think you can do this, but if they were to do it the way that I would picture it, is you would actually have it where you would need to use 2 octaves worth of keys to get 1 actual octave, if you were to translate it that way. So that going from C to the next C is only halfway home, because you're only going half, like from C to C sharp, that's only halfway. And then the D is actually C sharp, and then the D sharp is actually halfway between the C sharp and the D. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it would be weird looking and weird to try, but you could try to map it that way to get 24 tones per octave.
My challenge would be is to find that space between C to C sharp that's the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's also where you could, like you said, using the mod wheel.
Based on your idea of like dual sound, where if I can get the C and the C sharp, which are in one sound, and I transpose it so that I get that middle between C to C sharp, and I use that as a secondary sound, I could actually do 24 tones the way that they're breaking it up.
Or again, you could consider it where you're hitting, if you changed your mod wheel, instead of like with my pitch bend, it's going up a whole step. But if I could change that to a half of a half step.
That's the other way I was thinking about it. Like
bend up to the G almost sharp. G half
sharp. The mod wheel, you can set its how much of an impact it has, and if you.
But I'm not sure if you can get down that low. Can you get down to a half a semitone?
That's a good question, but if I can't do it from the mod wheel because the level is still a semitone, I could do it with some fancy tuning, like
true, yeah.
A dual patch where you adjust the semitone with tuning. I could meet between C and C sharp, tuning wise.
Yeah, and the question is, that's also where you got to be. You got to be pretty on with that too. That's one of those where playing a fretless, you need to hit in just the right spot, because if you're a little bit short or a little bit over, you're a little bit flat or a little bit sharp. If you only have half as much room to work with, if you're doing a microtonal scale here, so where you have twice as many spots to hit for notes. And again, I'm not really sure where to even start as far as which notes are in the scale with 24 notes per octave. It's like
I'd like to listen to some musical examples at some point. That
I would look up ragas. Ragas would be out. Ragas. It's a type of Indian musical piece that this one guy was using. He's a fretless bass player, and part of his warm up would be to go through some ragas. As what he was doing. It would be something
like
we'll definitely. That's why I would check it out for sure. But
Hey,
that's something we'll look at it. And we'll see what we got there, because it would be interesting, and that would be very far outside of my usual box of stuff that I usually listen to. So it's good for the ear training to see what's what. Finding out it's not C, it's not C sharp, it's in between there. I think and figuring out what notes we got in there.
Chances are I'll be better at recognizing pitch in between than I am at recognizing the pitch.
Could be. It's hard to say. And that's one of those that, again, recognizing intervals is important. Like, do you recognize what that is? Like, that could just be a major third, or that could just be a minor third. Recognizing how far you're going and what you're actually getting, that's the important thing there. Being able to recognize a specific interval, or recognizing a sixth is an A and a C. That's one thing that's nice, is this way it's a sixth, C up to the A. But if you invert it, it's only a third, minor third, because you're going from the A to the C. So recognizing which intervals are far away and which ones are close, just like the same thing with the 4 and the 5. If you go from a C up a fifth, you're at the G. If you go C down a fifth, you're at the F. So that's also about going around the circle of fifths and the circle of fourths, as you're going from C up to G or C down to F. Recognizing the intervals that you're going.
And that's why it is good to practice those like different chord progressions, because they will lead to interval comfortability.
And
you
inversions.
Try to do you try to do a 1-4-5-1, and you try it different ways. It will instigate, different inversions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now I think getting close to the 4-hour mark here. Got about as much as 20 minutes left. Not sure if Ange wants to wrap up anytime soon, but we'll find out. Meantime, though, we got some playtime stuff going on here.
Oh, my Starlink just revolted on me, dude. I think we got hit by lightning last night. I fried half my router.
Wow.
Port 1 and 2 no longer work on the router.
And that's after a reset and all that, right?
Well, yeah. Fortunately, the Starlink itself, the satellite, survived. It's funny because a week ago.
Now he's talking about the Starlink, so it has to start revolting even more. And then we snap our fingers and watch Tony go by. Just like that. And then he's back, and we see if we bring him back like that.
See?
I snapped too hard, sorry. Let me try again. That's better. That's better.
It's stabilizing.
Nice. We got you back.
Anytime you talk shit about your internet, they kick you off.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you're talking about me? No.
I said the Starlink survived. It did good.
Please, be nice to my connection.
My router burned out, not the satellite.
That's some dangerous stuff, and that's why a lot of times we try to keep our equipment behind either a UPS or a surge suppressor, a good one, so you can block out the lightning strike from getting all the way in.
Yeah, unfortunately,
different options there.
On the network side, there is no surge suppression for. When it gets into the network, it's nasty.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And we do not want the lightning. G and F for the lightning song. Just like that. We can go ahead and look into a couple of different things as well. We had a few videos that we went through today, and we didn't actually go through the videos, but we looked at them. And I think, again, finding resources that are helpful or that speak to you is important. So finding ones, whether it's finding a teacher that you resonate with or finding information that's packaged in a way that makes it accessible or easier to digest for what we're looking at is definitely helpful. We were looking at a bunch of songs that used the diminished chords. We looked at a few things about circle of fifths. That was one of my favorite parts about the whole thing, is making sure we get a lot of circle of fifths exposure and going through and understanding a lot of the different things that we can learn from it. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and finish up over here and get ourselves ready to rock and roll. It's been just about 4 hours anyway, so the band lab was going to cut us off within a few moments. So, yeah, we can wrap it up, and we'll pick up with that stuff next time.
Oh, my brain is full. I had multiple epiphanies tonight.
Nice. That makes it a good night. Any night that we can have multiple epiphanies going on anywhere is a good night. Most definitely. So thanks everybody for coming out. We appreciate you coming in the chat. Appreciate you coming and participating.
Oh, and don't forget,
happening here.
Tomorrow deadline on Pop to Metal for all of you.
Pop to Metal.
Midnight, night.
Be there. Got to make that happen. So, all right, so we will catch all of you guys the next time around. And in the meantime, this has been Glenn and Tony talking shh IT. And we will catch you guys next time.